Association has
Right.
done that because it's a form letter. Every
Right.
one of them is the same.
Same one. So I think we should find out who the homeowners association president is. And
Because it should be split 3 or 4 ways. Say it's an extra, just making that number up, who quote me on it, but say it's $20. Well, between 4 people, it's only $20 a month,
And the agenda wouldn't be on until
which
last night and
is
today.
not that much.
I posted it like Wednesday.
well, we need to get
So
the answer.
We pay like 28, 34, somewhere in there.
I have to send out. the
Sure, what are you doing?
That's paid way in advance.
So, yeah, I think we should get the answer, and I think an official response should come from somebody in the city.
Well, I'll follow up because I wanted to go and see them and or at least talk to them and Richard was there and the mayor was there and they said, well, we'll take care of it. So,
Richard and the mayor are gonna take care of it.
You have to turn off the heat so that it doesn't get too hot in here for
I
COVID.
have no problem because that was the number one complaint we had,
Gotta
Champlain,
keep it
was
cold.
water and sewer.
Freeze it out.
People would go, oh my goodness, how come
Actually,
they
it's
know
too
so
hot.
hot? Well,
It does.
maybe it's the leaky toilet you got.
With the masks, it's even worse.
Okay, all right. It's 4:17. Where's our committee, Beth?
Your watch clock must be wrong. I only have 4:14. The live stream is on right now and they're supposed to be coming.
Yeah.
I think he's coming right now. I can hear him.
No, that's the echo out in the lobby.
No,
No?
Mr. Brody's playing something out of phone.
Okay, gotcha.
It's exactly 4:50.
Now it is, yep.
I'm gonna run someplace and then
And if I had Brody or Barbell, Barbell's coming in through Skype.
Oh, okay. Right. I knew that. There's a blanket in my car. I might go get it.
You'll warm up soon enough, my friend.
I'm so cold. Hey, Matt.
It is true.
I can get you an extra sweatshirt from my car.
No
I'll
thanks.
find it nice.
Hi, Ethan. How are you?
Okay.
Okay. Hey, Shalice. How are you? Good.
And to get Council Brody can start it over.
Hello, Councilor Brody. How are you?
Hello, Counselor. Yes.
How are you?
That was called.
No, but I need a haircut desperately. Hello, Mayor.
I got a chairman underneath my arm here. Max Headroom.
Yeah,
I don't know if you guys remember that one.
I do remember that.
Okay, Chairman, you got the meeting.
The time to start?
Yes.
Yep.
Beth?
Minutes ago.
It is? All right. So I'm going to call to order the Governance Strategy City Operations Committee. And Beth, would you call the roll?
Council Barbell,
Here.
Council Brody,
Here.
Mayor Reed,
Here.
Council Gibbs,
Here.
Council Moore.
Here.
Okay. I'd like to have Sylvia, the city clerk, present her budget first, if that's okay with you.
So, I don't know if you guys can hear me or not, but Councilor Barbell and I got together and basically the sheet that everyone was given was kind of a guide and not that you had to answer every single bullet question. And he asked for me to explain a little bit about what our office does for city taxpayers. But actually, the city clerk's office does more than help city taxpayers, anybody born in the city of Plattsburgh or die in the city of Plattsburgh. I'm the registrar and my clerks, I have a deputy registrar and a sub-registrar. It's our responsibility to register every single birth and make sure that all the copies that are necessary are given out. to the parents in a timely fashion by state requirements, and the same with the death certificates. Those are not procedures that we do that are revenue generating. We're required to do them by state law. For every child that's born, and the father and mother are not married, there's an acknowledgement of paternity. You make 5 copies of everything. You have to distribute that. It all has to be signed, sealed, mailed within a timely fashion so people can get their children on their insurance policies. Same thing with death. People have families, estates that need to be settled. We have 72 hours to process the entire, that's from the time the person dies. The doctor signs off on it, the funeral director gets it, puts in their portion, and then I need to complete my section of it. So that's a 24/7 hour thing. I work on it on weekends, on evenings, my staff does it all during the day, but those are things that we do that are not revenue. We do a lot of things in the office that are state requirements that are not revenue generating. One of them, a large one, is FOILs, Freedom of Information. I mean, those can take me anywhere from 5 minutes to 5 days, 10 days, depending on emails. I can go through 1,000 emails for one FOIL request, and I have to open every single email and read every single email because there might be a line in there that could be given out, or the whole thing could be redacted. But it's a time-consuming thing, but it is for the taxpayers' benefits. They have the right to any record. They have the right to request any record, and most records are allowable. There are some that are deniable, even if portions of them are allowed. So, and the other thing that we do is we actually then process requests for birth certificates and requests for death certificates. So, your child was born, they're getting ready to get their permit, they'll apply for a birth certificate because they need to bring it to motor vehicles. That is revenue generating. Same thing with death certificates. People several years later realize that there's an account. They're notified that they were on that account with one of their deceased family members, so they need to get a death certificate to close that account out. So during COVID, I had my staff working remotely. We were updating files, updating our procedures, updating our applications, trying to get everything online. Everything is online now. I had one staff member that was furloughed. So generally speaking, when we get the mail and we get a request in, we turn around the request the same day. During COVID, my priority was death certificates that had to be registered, not requests for death certificates, and birth certificates that had to be registered. So my same day turnaround might have been several days because I was in the office doing all of that while they were returning phone calls, emails. So, but we did keep that service going, which was vital for a lot of people. One of the things that we did, I put in my little synopsis that we did it by email, but we didn't. It was a typo. We did it all by mail in the Dropbox. We had certain people that insisted on cash, and because they couldn't come into the building because the building was locked, the Dropbox was good for us. I mean, Richard allowed me to use that, utilize that, and his clerks would go and get it, and I could get a cash payment that way, which was very helpful to some of our residents that were unable to do it otherwise. So we do a lot of other things. We issue marriage licenses, taxi permits, taxi vehicle permits, dog licenses, gas permits, vendor permits, hauler licenses, tree removal licenses, handicap placards. I do the bingo licensing, games of chance licensing, oaths of office, notice of claims, certification, background checks, monthly revenue reports, reports to the New York State Department of Ags and Marketing, report for the New York State Department of Health, street drives, auditorium requests. I do the timesheets, bid openings, return of securities, budget preparation. I'm responsible for municipal buildings budget. I'm also responsible for city court budget. So we do a lot in our office. And I put et cetera because I'm sure I didn't get everything. Because some things we only do once in a while, some things I do often. Every single time you generate a law, I'm responsible for putting that in a format, sending it to the state. It's got to be done in a timely fashion and in their format. Then I have to make sure that it has been updated within the 20 days. So those are a few of the other things that I do. Also a notary, all the repairs in the building, claim reimbursement, Bridge Street market stalls. I mean, I guess I could go on for a while. So some of the things that we're starting to look into is scanning and emailing documentation. So when we do a taxi permit, we used to copy that and send it to the police department. Now we're just scanning it and sending it to Cala. The same thing with the gas permits. So we scan them and send them downstairs to Lisa. We're also continually updating our vital records. We're going to start attempting to email out our dog renewal licenses as opposed to mailing every single one of them out. So we're in the process now of calling dog owners and saying, would you prefer to get it via email? So that kind of sums up what I think we did during COVID, what I think we're continuing to do. And then if you don't have any further questions, I'd like to go into, or if you don't have any questions, not that you've asked any, I'd like to go into the adjustments, if that's.
Sure.
Okay. So the non-compensation line item needs to be added $2,500. I have inadvertently put that under separation pay. And in the mayor's budget, that was taken out, but that has to go back in. That's one of my clerks takes the buyout for the health insurance. There's no option for that. That has to go back into the budget. Additionally, I need an increase of slightly over $6,000. I had initially put in $4,800 for the telephone based on last year's, but last year's went up dramatically from the year before, so I had absolutely no idea how to budget next year. So I just said, with the $4,800, it comes in that it's over $11,000. We have 3 phones and 3 computers and 3 copiers, so I never would have been able to estimate $11,000.
Can you say that one more time? So it increased to last year 4,800. Now it's up to.
Well, I believe the year before it was like 25 or 2,700. I'd have to look. Then last year it increased to 4,800, and this year it's a little over 11,000. So, yeah, to be honest with you, I think it may have to do with the fact that we're possibly in the process of, it's not just the telephone, it's our IT services. So we were in contract, that's when it went up the first time we contracted with Prime Link. And our budgets were everyone's budget, not just mine. Every department's budget went up. And I'm not certain, but it may have to do with the fact that we're in the process right now, and that's an anticipated cost?
Yes.
Okay,
In the
so,
mayor's budget back in June, all the telecommunication accounts were increased 130%. And that's because estimating $285,000 worth of cost in and $83,000 taken out. So $200,000 increase spread across the whole city.
Is it the same phone provider for all services, all the city? Or is it each department maybe a different one?
No, PrimeLink is the provider. It's a voice over IP system, but the IT cost that we're anticipating for next year, the worst case was $285,000. So what I did was took $285,000 and added that in, and took the $83,000 we're currently paying for IT services to PrimeLink, took that out. So the increase is $202,000 across the board.
And what's the cause of the increase? Because the library director said the same thing. Last year it increased dramatically to 13,000, and this year it's increasing dramatically to 30,000.
Sounds like we need a new service company.
No, it's IT services that are anticipated for this RFP we're doing for next year. Outside IT support services. There's no other way to charge for that unless we create a department. because it's all voice over IP system and telephones and computer connections are all the telecommunications, and it's shared equally each month, just the way we do the telephone bill.
But what's the cost of the increase from last year if we have the same service?
The increase from last year,
Yeah, from 13,000, for the library, 13,000, I forget the numbers that Sylvia just said.
It was like 100% increase.
Just
it's
do
a
it.
Yeah.
130% increase.
And that's across all departments, right?
All telephone accounts across all departments, because of the $202,000 increase that's being spread in the budgeted numbers for next year based on the anticipated outside IT services.
I think what I'm saying is, why did the IT services gouge us so much more?
Because the bids or the proposals, the worst case proposal is $285,000 that I remember, and that's what we have information for. I don't know what it's gonna turn out to be, but I took the worst case and put it through.
All right.
Now, the reason it went up previous increase was because we engaged Link $84,000 a year for IT services for 2 half-days a week for Brian Brady.
Yeah.
So, there's only one way to share that.
How were we sharing it before when the 3 employees were all being paid?
They were in the general fund and our IT administration account. But in 2017, all 3 employees were moved into water and sewer, because it was anticipated that they could start taking over working the water filtration plant and water pollution control plant in computer systems that are managed by Total Control Systems, who was anticipated to go out of business and take all of their IT technology for our plant controllers to the grave. So John Ruff worked out with the mayor that they would take and transfer all 3 employees and share between water and sewer, with the anticipation they were gonna work on those plant controllers.
Did that happen?
It did happen. 2 of those employees have gone on to Prime Link. One of them is still working for the city and is still being costed to water and sewer only. But most of the work he does is at the PD and, here in the city. So we're charging him there, but we're not allocating his costs across all companies.
I wonder if I could interrupt for a minute and if we could better finish the budget presentation, and then we can go on in more depth on if there's a particular area in the city clerk's budget that we want to talk about that goes beyond just IT across the board.
Okay.
And plus, you might want to wait till Mike Kelly can be on for IT discussions, because I know Richard and Mike are on that committee, but I'm not on that committee, and Richard or Mike may have something to add.
Is Mike coming?
Yep, this is what the second machine's for.
Oh, okay.
My contracted service line, I had put in the last year budget approximately $7,300. An ideal budget, I think I put $8,500. The mayor's budget reduced it to $5,531. It does need to be back up, and I would say at least minimally to $7,351. If you were just contracting for the contracted services in my department, the $5,500 would be fine. But a large portion of contracted services that come out of my budget line item are actually for general code, which the council really is responsible for. Every time you pass a law, that affects general code, that increases the cost. I don't mind it being in my budget, but I do have to have monies to compensate for that. Currently, I pay next year's will be $600 for web services, approximately $2,300 for my clerk software. And right now, general code is at approximately $3,800, and that's without local law number 4, local law number 5. So you can see where I'm already over $6,000. So that would have to be upped.
So you're saying the 4430 line of contracted services, right now, the budget is 5531. It needs to be back to 7351?
If you're going to keep general code under the city clerk's, yes, if you put general code under contracted services for the common council, you can leave it at that.
Okay, so you're also saying separation pay needs to be 2,500.
Separation pay does have to be 2,500.
There's nothing in there right now,
Right.
right? And I think I misread this. So So separation pay needs to go to 2,500. And non-payroll compensation, does that need to go up as well?
That is non-payroll, the 2,500 is non-payroll compensation.
Oh, sorry.
That's the line item that,
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
So contracted services, it's gonna be a deficit next year if you leave, general code under my umbrella and don't put it under the council umbrella. Even if it goes under the council umbrella, your contracted services are gonna be undercut. Because really, right now, I think the only contracted services you pay for, and I could be wrong, are for when I put the ads in for the press and public and for public hearings. I think those are the only contracted services that you pay for. And that does come out of your budget, but I charge it to your budget. So maybe I could charge general code to your budget. It doesn't matter to me. You can leave it under my umbrella. It's just you need to increase those monies. And then my further comment down is, I've always had an austere budget. I've never had, there's nowhere for me to take money from one line item and put it in any of these other line items. I just do not have a budget. I mean, I would have to get rid of a person, which is, I'm not willing to do. Not that I'm not willing to do it, I can't do it.
Right.
There's 3 people in the office. One gets sick, one's on vacation. If one person is in there, you're just not, what if 2 people get sick? It's not, we have to process the death certificates, and we have to process the birth certificates. It's just,
Essential services.
they are essential services,
Yeah.
and 3 people is minimal staff. There used to be 6 or 7 people in that office. That was many years ago, and, we didn't have the efficiencies we have now, but 3 is it. Like, I'm not willing to even entertain the thought of going, but that's up to you guys, not to me.
So does your payroll budget account for the number of people that you
Except for
need?
that $2,500, yes.
Okay.
So the municipal buildings budget, there were a few tweaks to it. I think it's livable. At the end of the year, we may be able to move money from one line item to the other. Electricity was cut, water was cut. We're already beyond the water amount right now, this year, than I think is suggested for all of next year. But it's not by much. I mean, we may be able to contracted services, we might not have something major break, and we might be able to move some money around, so I'm not as concerned about that budget. Also, when I did the budget in June, I did not have the city court budget. So I estimated a capital outlay of $55,000, which, according to my contact at the state, they were still going to do some projects, and then when I got the budget in September, it had 0 projects, so that can be eliminated, that $55,000. The election budget can be eliminated, or not can be eliminated, but can be reduced by $4,800. We never got the election budget from the county until September 24th, so, I put in based on, this year was a primary year, so the numbers went way up. We knew that last year. And then last year when they sent it, they said they thought it would go back to the year previous. So I think I put in like 48,000, which was the year previous, but they sent it to us and it's 64,000. So I really don't control some of these things that are there. As far as efficiencies, I really believe the municipal buildings budget and the city court budget would be better served under another department.
Under another department, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I'm just trying, okay.
Yeah. Currently when repairs, someone calls in and the toilet's not working, they let me know, I let DPW know, DPW comes over, they either fix it or tell me I need a contractor. If they fix it, then they have to bring the receipt back to DPW, DPW has to take a copy of it, make sure it's filled out right, then they bring the receipt back to, it's not efficient.
Was it under DPW before, or?
No, it was under engineering.
And what about the city court?
City court was under engineering, though everything was that was all under engineering.
And so it sounds like you're making a recommendation that the municipal buildings budget would go to DPW or would go to the
City court as well, because if there's a repair at city court, DPW goes there too.
And those are the general expenses coming out of the city court to the budget line?
Unless there's, well, yes, we get reimbursed. The good thing about city court is we get reimbursed 100%, and then 5% for administrative costs. So if we can do everything in-house at city court, we would actually recoup payroll too. Unfortunately, we don't have the skilled labor that is required sometimes. So an example is 2 or 3 years ago, they redid all the holding cells. They had to separate for male and female and adolescents. And so of course, you can only do so much with the space you have, so they did male and female, and then if there's an adolescent and there's someone in the male, they'll put the adolescent in the female, etc. Each attorney had to have their own. So we had an engineering department back then, and Adam Fraser worked with me because I don't know what to ask contractors. I don't know. It's kind of outside my wheelhouse. I go there, I do the best effort I can. I really rely a lot of times on the contractors because you have to do our procurement policy, which is 3 bids, and so I generally will get with one and say, I need to compare apples to apples. What things should I be asking? And then a lot of times people still have to come in from either DPW or engineering when we had one, because there would be a question that I couldn't answer from a contractor because I don't know about HVACs and I just don't know certain things. I mean, and maybe I should, but I don't.
And that's a discussion we've been having for a long time. We mentioned recently having a building and grounds person to work for us to take care of these things.
But if we do have that, the suggestion was that person would come out of DPW. So
Right,
it would just
exactly.
make more sense that those budgets then go to DPW, who actually have more staff than I do to even do the paperwork portion of it.
And the history of this, I think, if you recall from what you said, was we used to have a clerk who was really good at that kind of stuff, and he was kind of the guy who ran the building, and then it ended up on your plate. And I remember you and our previous engineer having a lot of
Well, it
a
used
lot
to
of
be in
discussions.
engineering years ago, and then there was something occurred, and the prior mayor, previous to even Jim, Calnon, asked him if he would, because he had building experience, if he would take it over. And he said yes, because there was a conflict of some sort between engineering and whatever. I don't know what it was, but I heard the story, and it doesn't matter. It's on my plate, and now it needs to go to someone who's more equipped to handle it.
Okay.
So I've heard a lot too about the one-stop shopping, which I know sounds like a really good idea. I just don't know. I don't think the city is small enough to entertain that. And by that, I mean, population-wise, we have way too many records. For one thing, my records are all confidential records. You can't just have somebody walk into a vault. I mean, myself, my deputy, or my sub-registrar have to escort them in, and they can't look at the records. I mean, you can't look at vital records, you just can't. So whoever is, if we're gonna cross-train everybody, I'm gonna have to cross-train them all on everything that the state requires. And I got a new clerk last July, and we're still in the training process. I mean, there are still questions, I've been here 6.5 years, that are gray, and they just come up, and like, I have to contact the state, and then you have to, trickle that down so everyone's doing the same thing, and that's why we're constantly updating our procedures. And I don't have a problem training someone, because while I don't necessarily think the one-stop shop will work, because where are you gonna house all the records? Where are you gonna put people to put all the records that one person can pull from? The other thing is I use a completely different software system than Munis. About 1.5 years ago, I called Munis. They can't do clerk records. They can't do the marriage licenses. They can't do the birth certificates. They can't do the death certificates. So if someone comes to you and says, I want a building permit and I want a death certificate, write me out a check for the building permit and now write me out a check for the birth certificate, because they're two different pools. They're two different checking accounts. So and maybe other departments could do that. I just don't think many people coming in are gonna wanna write two checks.
So, would something of this nature, it would have civil service implications, I'm assuming?
I would believe so. 'Cause-
Yes. And possibly union implications as well.
And that's why I further went on to say that while I don't necessarily think that one-stop thing, I'm not opposed to someone in a classification such as a typist being cross-trained in my office as a typist, because I'm probably the one department in the whole city of Plattsburgh that could benefit from if someone's out sick and someone's on vacation and I'm really busy, saying to another department that might be having a slow day, hey, can I borrow your clerk for just 2 hours during this, my lunch hour, or I've got to run to the bank, can you bring some, do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not opposed to cross-training. I think actually there's a huge benefit in that.
But the cross-training that you're talking about is typist to typist. So,
Right, you can't
so you're
have an
saying
account
within the
clerk
same classification with
within-
civil
And it would
service?
have to be passed by, it would have to run by civil service.
You would
too.
have to?
I think you would.
Okay.
I mean, maybe not, but I think you might be able to. That's why I said in the classification, I think it's easier to cross-train someone than, not just to cross-train them, but to meet civil service guidelines as well.
Mhm.
So, I don't know if I answered any of your questions or all of your questions,
No,
or if you have any questions.
No, I don't.
Okay, do people have questions now, so we can, for Sylvia, that we need to do right now, or we can get Matt up here and get some of these done before 5 o'clock?
I don't have any other questions for you personally, but go ahead.
I just have two quick questions.
Okay.
One, you said you have people that only want to pay you cash and want to pay you in person?
Well, we do have people that, yes, they don't have a checking account and they don't have a credit card.
Do you see that often?
Not often, but often enough that
It's needed.
we got them during COVID, we were doing everything through mail
Yeah.
and,
And that's the other thing I noticed, you said the Dropbox was vital for you during that period.
absolutely, that's where they put it. Some people didn't want to put a stamp on the envelope, they're just like, I'll just drop it off in the,
Yeah. I minimized my trips to the post office as well during that
Yeah.
time, which essentially were stolen.
yep,
So the Dropbox was essential for you, and being able to accept cash in person was essential, or making cash was important.
yes. Jeff? All right.
Thank you. And Matt, are you available? Yeah, okay. Why don't you come up and get started? And we're probably not going to finish it in 15 minutes. We have a public hearing, I think, at 5 o'clock today.
I made a copy for everybody.
I guess, okay.
All right, as the council knows, the Community Development Office, we have the responsibility of managing our own departmental budget, the budget for Recreation Complex, including city parks, and the parking fund. The 2021 mayor's budget that was released in October effectively dismantles the CDO to other city departments and the elimination of the director of CDO position. It also contains major funding reductions to what remains of the recreation complex budget, and that will complicate our ability to effectively manage the ongoing responsibilities operationally of the rec complex, and to plan and implement future improvements to the city's recreational assets, and that's the beach, the parks, and that's something that the council has expressed consistent support for. Regarding the parking fund, the mayor's budget eliminates funding for the city's lone parking enforcement officer position, and that will hinder our ability to manage the city's parking system because an effective enforcement mechanism is an indispensable component of any parking system. The parking fund budget also removes all anticipated revenue associated with a new paid downtown parking system that was recommended by the city's parking advisory committee. Moving on to what the CDO accomplished this year. Of course, the most noteworthy project is the Durkee Lot mixed-use development. The CDO, over the course of 2020, completed the first generic environmental impact statement that I'm aware of in the city's recent memory. That evaluated the impacts of 8 city-sponsored projects, including the Durkee Development Project. And in coordination with Prime, we've navigated an extensive review process by the City Zoning Board of Appeals and the Planning Board, and that has involved numerous significant changes to the project's design. And despite the efforts of an extraordinarily vocal opposition group, we've kept that process on track, and we currently anticipate resolution of the board review process by the end of 2020.
Yes, every 4 board.
We must have it on noise. Sorry, Matt.
Yeah, no problem. As to physical improvements, the CDO supervised and completed the demolition of both the former MLD site on Green Street and the former Glens Falls National Bank building on Margaret Street. We also planned and completed the construction of the Arnie Pavone Memorial Parking Plaza and the expansion of the city's Broad Street municipal parking lot. Between the two of those projects, over 120 new public parking spaces were added to the downtown system. Construction of the first phase of improvements to the Bed a Little Arts Park has commenced, and completion of all phases of that project are anticipated for the summer of 2021. One building renovation project funded under the DRI's Downtown Grant Program, or the DGP, was completed in 2020, and 2 others are currently under construction. These DGP projects involve the issuance of multiple loans through the city's revolving loan fund.
Which one was completed?
Ethan, which one was completed?
21 Bridge Street. It's effectively completed. He has minor trim work, but for all intents and purposes, the project's completed. The vacant residential apartment on the 3rd floor has been rented out and has been rented out since he completed that work back in January this year, earlier.
So it's already paying dividends. The installation of new downtown street signs and banners highlighting Plattsburgh history were completed in 2020 with funding from the DRI's Marketing, Signage, and Branding Project. And lastly, in coordination with DPW, CDO facilitated the fabrication and installation of half a dozen new historic signs throughout downtown. Regarding capital projects overseen by the CDO that have yet to break ground, the 2 most noteworthy are Phase 2 of the Saranac River Trail and the relocation of the Plattsburgh Farmers and Crafters Market to the former MLD site. That is actually no longer true because they started work on that the other day. Each of these projects involved a complex bidding process with multiple rounds, but both projects are now under contract. Construction of the market's new facility is scheduled to begin construction soon, and SRT is set for groundbreaking in the spring of 2021. Now, in all, the dollar value of all active construction contracts currently being supervised by the CDO is $4,135,139. Now, throughout 2020, the CDO assisted the Mayor's Office and Corporation Council during the ongoing annexation process for the city's Ruger Street property. We began the process of updating the city's comprehensive plan, LRAP, and zoning code, and are also pursuing a master planning document for the Harborside area under another New York State Department of State grant. Yeah, we got it. They sent us the final contract about 2 weeks ago. Yep. An $825,000 grant contract from the Financial Restructuring Board to reimburse costs associated with the city's multiple downtown parking projects has been finalized, and all we're waiting for is a final signature from the Department of State. A further $882,000 in costs associated with the DRI's Dock Street project, Whitenberg's consulting services for the Prime project, and the demolition of the former MLD site have been submitted to Empire State Development for reimbursement, and that's anticipated in the spring or summer of 2021. The CDO's management of the city's planning board yielded many accomplishments, including final approval of a 56,000 square foot expansion of the historic Vilas home, 12 new multifamily housing units, 3 new subdivisions, 11 historic site review applications, an advisory review of 4 city-sponsored DRI projects. Now, of course, it's been a difficult year for the rec complex as the pandemic forced the closure of most recreational facilities and resulted in the elimination of the entire RCX staff. These developments required us to reappraise how these facilities will be operated, and it caused us to seek third-party management for both the Crate Center and the City Rec Center. An agreement's been executed with Elevate 518 for management of the Crate Center, and negotiations are ongoing with the Plattsburgh YMCA for a similar agreement to manage the city gym.
How far along is that?
I'm in ongoing discussions with the director of the YMCA. They are looking for some feedback from the city's existing gym members as to how many would sign up for new memberships under new management if they took over the facility, just to get a sense of what financing they could look like. How well did you do it? The project's completed in 2020. I think the physical results speak for themselves. I've heard nothing but compliments on how the Arnie Pavone lot looks. The final cost of a few of these projects was, admittedly higher than we originally anticipated, but that can be explained partly on irregularities in the bidding process that were caused by logistical chaos in the wake of the COVID pandemic. Now, despite that, the CDO was able to secure a contract for the Plattsburgh Farmers Market's relocation that matched almost exactly the DGP grant award approved by the council. Additionally, demolition of the MLD site was completed for less than half of the project's grant award. As stated, many of these projects are funded in whole or in part by grant awards from various agencies. Now, in total, the CDO is currently managing $9,265,000 in grants directly, and that figure does not include the $4 million grant awarded directly to Prime Plattsburgh as the DRI's capital investment in the Durkee Lot mixed-use development. There's a list of grants included in the narrative that I provided to the council, but the biggest are the DRI Streetscape and Riverfront Access, that's $2.9 million. And $2.1 million for the Saranac River Trail, and on down the list. Now, managing this many grants, and it's a total of 12, it's not simple, it's not easy. Each grant is unique. It comes with its own budget, deliverables, reporting requirements, reimbursement procedures, completion schedules, and in most cases, subcontractors and consultants that require the drafting and management of requests for proposals, coordination of public bidding processes, contractual negotiations, and construction oversight. Despite all these complexities, we have kept all the grants on track and will continue to update the mayor and council on their progress. And it should be noted that we were able to do this despite the 10 weeks in the middle of the year when both myself and the city's planner were furloughed 50%, and our senior account clerk was splitting her time between the CDO and the building inspector's office. We think that the CDO's conducted all of its responsibilities admirably this past year. We look forward to additional progress in 2021. Now, in partnership with Clinton County, as far as what difference did these efforts make, the city laid the foundations for a new and more efficient parking system that will better serve the needs of the city's residents, business owners, and visitors for decades. The need for that new parking system was the most significant impediment to the development of the Durkee Street parking lot. Now, with construction of the Farmers Market's new home scheduled to be completed next spring, construction of the Prime project can proceed without delay or detriment to the community pending board approvals and the resolution of any associated litigation. The anticipated completion of Phase 2 of the Saranac River Trail in 2021 will result in a direct multimodal connection from SUNY's campus directly to the downtown core for the first time in history. The anticipated benefits of this connection are tremendous. It will create a far stronger link between two of the city's most important institutions. The increased pedestrian traffic will benefit downtown businesses, and the new recreational opportunities for city residents will make Plattsburgh an even better place to live. To our knowledge, it's been over 15 years since Plattsburgh's downtown has seen changes to its streetscape as significant as those implemented during 2020. I think the last project to have this big of an effect was the Gateway project in the early 2000s. And of course, we're proud to have taken part in that ongoing transformation.
I'm afraid I think we're going to need to wrap up this meeting, begin the hearing, and return to this meeting at a later time.
Could we, I don't want to kind of cut you off. So could we move forward in just a couple of minutes, I think, to start the public hearing? The mayor, is that correct, that it will start at 5?
Correct,
Yeah, no problem.
And then perhaps at the end of the meeting, Matt, could you finish this report and go over this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. So I want to make a motion now to move the items 1 through 4 to the council agenda for action. Do you have a second on that?
Seconded by Mr. Brody.
Counselor
All
Barbell?
those in favor? Yes.
Counselor Brody? Mayor Reed?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to declare this, I'll make a motion to close the governance committee meeting.
Moved by Councilor Barbell, second by Councilor Brody. Roll call.
Counselor Brody?
Yeah,
Counselor Barbell?
yes.
Mayor Reed?
Yes. Thank you, and then let's begin our public hearing for November 5th, 2020. City of Plattsburgh is holding a public hearing to hear public comment on proposed local law P5, a local law amending and replacing in its entirety Chapter 116 alarm systems as set forth in City Code of the City of Plattsburgh. Are there any members of the public that please like to come address the council on the proposed local law P5 on alarm systems?
Only question I have is, have you run it by Department of State yet? There's an article in the state licensing that says no municipality less than $1 million can do a separate alarm license.
Can you come to the
You'll need
microphone,
to come
sir?
to the,
Have they run the
State your
text?
name and address, please, for the public hearing.
Hi, Tony Cologne Security, 27 New York Road, Plattsburgh, New York. Just wondering if the text is run by New York State Department of State, because they actually regulate alarms in the state, and there's an actual paragraph that says any city less than $1 million isn't like a separate license or regulations in the state. And anything over $1 million has had a license before they did their licensing in '93. I know I talked to Jim Welch, he was gonna contact you guys and ask you.
can you answer anything on that?
I'm gonna have an answer.
We'll click on reviving, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Any other members of the public, please come and address the council on this public hearing? Seeing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed and move to the common council meeting for tonight, beginning with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America.
States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Reed?
Present.
Counselor Barbell?
Here.
Counselor Kelly? Counselor Gibbs? Oh, is it there?
Yep.
Oh, Counselor Kelly is here. Counselor Gibbs?
Here.
Counselor Brody? Here. Counselor McFarland? Here. Counselor Moore?
Here.
I think we've got some big items for tonight, so I'll forgo my comments. Please continue. And for the people on Skype, could you please make sure you're muted if you're not using the connection, if you're not speaking? Thank you.
Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of the Common Council held on October 29th, 2020 are approved and placed on file among the public records of the city clerk's office.
Moved by Councilor Brody, second by Councilor Gibbs. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Resolved that the payrolls of the various departments of the city of Plattsburgh for the week ending November 4th, 2020 in the amount of $463,979.09 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and the city clerk are hereby empowered and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Councilor Moore, second by Councilor Gibbs. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. You have in your packet the regular reports for the week. Any additional reports, beginning with governance strategy and city operations?
Well, we completed part of our meeting, and we're going to continue it at the end of this council meeting. So if people want to stay around after the council meeting, you'll hear the finish up of the community development budget report.
Thank you. City infrastructure, Councilor Moore. Finance and budget, Councilor Kelly.
No updates at this time.
Public Safety, Councilor Gibbs.
No updates.
Councilor Public Library, Councilor McFarland.
No updates, although the library has expressed a recommendation to fill an empty board of trustees position, so I'll forward that to the mayor soon. But other than that, no further updates.
And MLD Board President, Councilor McFarland.
We had our meeting last week. Since then, there's been no further updates.
Results reports as listed are hereby ordered received, and any written reports are placed on file among the public records of the city clerk's office. Moved by Councilor Gibbs and second by Councilor Brody. A discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. We do have one correspondence from one of our boards. It's in your packet, a request to, I can read it out, resolve this Public Safety Citizens Review Panel. Request the Common Council extend the deadline of December 31st, 2020 set forth in the Common Council Resolution of June 25th, 2020, which created the Public Safety Citizens Review Panel for ratification or adoption of the plan based on the recommendation of this panel, which is required by Governor Cuomo's Executive Order 203 to be completed on April 1st, 2021. And just note, actually, the governor had requested that cities put in place actions by April 1st, 2021, not merely start considering recommendations from one of the boards. And they tied approval by March 3rd or April 1st, 2021 of city actions to our successful receipt of AIM and other state funding for next year. So just keep that in mind, and this would be then up to you to decide whether you want to, how you want to deal with this request for a resolution.
Well, I have a couple of questions that can we discuss it now, or does it have to be, procedurally, does it have to be,
Under new business
yeah,
or
does it
not?
have to be voted on before we can discuss it?
We should follow the charter, but it's up to the, or excuse me, the agenda, but it's up to the chair or the consensus of the council if you want to diverge from that.
If you'd like to have a discussion, that'd be certainly fine with me, whatever you prefer.
Well, there are two things that I wonder. There's no date attached to their request. They just are asking for it to be extended, but it doesn't say until when. So that part is confusing to me. Because the work has to be done, and then the recommendation, as the mayor has already said, the recommendation has to be, all the paperwork has to be filed and so forth. So there isn't an actual date attached to this, so I'm a little confused about that.
I think they're proposing to have their work done by April 1, 2021, which is what gave me pause for concern, so which is why.
Yeah, it's not really specific, and that's not really gonna work, as we all know. It has to be done before then.
Right.
The next question I have is, have we received any updates from the panel on the status of their work or anything that they've done so far? Have you received anything there?
No.
Well, Chief Ritter is here. I don't know if he's able, I realize you're not the official chairperson, but I don't, so those are the two questions that I have about this, and about voting on it. So I thought I'd bring those questions up. I don't know how the rest of the council feels about that.
Elizabeth, or I think Councilor Gibbs, I feel exactly the same way. I would love to get some kind of an update. I mean, I have no problems with extending this, but I think it shouldn't be extended to the date that we're supposed to be implementing, as you said. So we might want to back that up a month or so. But I would love to get an interim update now, or in the next couple of weeks, from the committee as to where they are, or what their focus is, and and the additional issues that they see needing to study over the next 6 months, and then perhaps another update in maybe March or something like that, February, March, as to where they are in this process, so we can be prepared as a council to act on things that they're going to bring us, and not have only a few days or a week to digest what they give to us.
Yeah, the work will have to be completed. I mean, I don't know how these things work, but it would seem to me that the work would need to be completed I don't know, Mayor, what, February maybe, in order to, or maybe even, I'm not even really sure. So that is concerning to me, there isn't an actual date attached to it.
I would recommend procedurally, knowing that some of the changes may even go as far as require additional council public hearings and local laws, that even pushing it to the end of February at the latest would be problematic,
I know.
but perhaps barely doable. But I think you'd asked Chief Ritter to comment. He may be able to answer some of the mindset
Okay.
here.
I will note that the resolution as it's written here says for ratification and adoption, they're asking for, and that was our original one that set the deadline at December 31st too.
Right.
Wasn't just for the finishing, or, sorry, that's not even the word, the finishing of the panel's work, but also finishing of public input and adoption. So it does seem like this resolution also has, it says for ratification and adoption. So I think the panel would have to make recommendations and definitely have to allow some time for public comment and
Yeah.
adoption. Yes, but I'll let you.
So I can speak for the first one. The intent of asking for an extension being open-ended is a realistic in the determination of the panel of when the Common Council would like to receive a recommendation to fall in line with the council's ratification and adoption of that recommendation by April 1st. It's merely stating that the executive order and the council resolution have two different dates, but they're both trying to accomplish the same thing. So those are the reason for the dates. The open-endedness is really just asking
For more time.
for more time, because logistically, if we were to provide a recommendation today, like the mayor says, procedurally, there are things that would have to happen to be on pace for December 31st. So logistically, it's just, we're just trying to ask. That's
Right,
all.
okay.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Who is the chairperson? Because I know the chairperson resigned.
Currently, there is no chair, so I, on behalf of the panel, volunteered to just be available for questions if they did come up, but I really am not speaking for the panel. I'm kind of in a weird position here.
Yeah.
And how many people are
It's
I
the
don't
people
know.
that you have here listed.
Okay.
Yeah.
then-
I would ask for two things. I would ask for a clearer date, a clearer finish date. This isn't, because this isn't clear, and I would also like an official update from them, maybe presented to Beth, as to what they've accomplished so far. I would like those two things. I don't have a problem extending it, but I just think that the deadline needs to be more clear. I don't know how the council feels about that.
Well, it seems that we should change the deadline rather than have it be a nebulous of this is when everything needs to be done. The panel has to make a recommendation, and we need to put it through public input, and
Right.
then we need to enact local laws or resolutions to put forth their recommendations based on public input. So since only one of those things can be controlled by the panel, instead of setting the deadline for when it's all due, why don't we set a deadline for when the recommendation is?
Yeah, that's what I think needs to be in it too.
I completely agree. So that requires, how much time does this council think we would need for public input?
I don't know.
And then make, so if there's a local law, that takes at least 10 days
Yeah.
for a public hearing.
Plus, and we don't know what they're, we don't know what they're working on. I think it would be a better idea if we tabled this. That's what I think we should do. I think it should be tabled. Chief, when is your next meeting?
Not next Monday, but the following Monday.
So we'd have to.
We definitely have to give them an extension.
Yeah.
Because even if we started public hearings right now, they don't have recommendations, I imagine. And even if we started public hearings in 2 weeks, and we don't have council meetings of the last couple of weeks, or the last week at least,
Right.
of December, so
Right.
it's not getting done. So I have no problem saying that we'll grant an extension. If we want to table the resolution to find out the exact, or to discuss further and reach out to the panel, what exact date to put in. I'm thinking like mid-February.
I'm thinking earlier than that. I'm thinking, yeah, maybe mid-February, but
I mean, I think they have the, well, I don't know.
I think mid-February would be better. Can we change the language or the date on this? It's not our resolution.
Well, it's your,
Well,
We
it's
it's your
our
can,
resolution.
I mean, it is, but it's their recommendation, I'm sorry.
So their recommendation is asking for an extension. They
So why don't we
should give
change,
an
instead
extension.
of tabling it, why don't we change the date? Why don't we amend the resolution? So, because they're not gonna meet again until a couple more weeks, and I'd really hate to let it hang here and then not get done. So can we amend the, language of the resolution to reflect a specific,
You don't even need to amend it, you just need to state your resolution. And I might recommend then that very last sentence, that last clause, just say for the work to be completed on, and then just specify whatever date you're comfortable with.
Well, the ratification and adoption is April 1st. I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
But you don't need to
ratification
restate
and
that,
adoption-
that's already state law.
Well, I think mid-February works good. You know, when you extend things out too far, you tend to stretch it out.
Yeah.
If we have a deadline, like, I think Elizabeth's suggestion of mid-February would be more than adequate, give us time.
I think Elizabeth said earlier, but I said mid-February.
Okay.
well, if there are local, we don't know what the recommendations are gonna be, but if there are local law recommendations, there's a process for that.
There's legal work, there's a 2-week period, and for some controversial proposals, they may require, look at some of the issues that we deal with that are much more minor than this, that sometimes stretch out for months and months and months. So yeah, the more time that I like you all to afford, the better.
How about February 15th? How does the council feel about that? That's
It's
right,
President's Day.
oh, it's a holiday, that's right.
We can do February 12th.
February 12th?
That's the
But-
Friday, or February 11th is the council day. The recommendations are due by the council meeting on February 11th.
That sounds good.
I think that sounds reasonable.
Okay, so I would make an amendment to change the,
Well, we haven't
Well,
brought it,
you
it's not
don't-
on the table yet.
Yeah, you don't have it on the table yet, so you just make your
We're just amending it
resolution.
right now.
You're not worried, have to worry about amending anything.
We're just gonna read it.
Okay, so how about we say, in accordance with the request, therefore, the common council approves extending the deadline of December 31st, 2020 to February 11th? Is that what we just said?
see, but the deadline that was listed on the December 31st, the resolution that was passed in June, and I want to say June 13th, but I don't know the exact day, does, the deadline it sets is not for the recommendations, it's for completion of everything. So I think extending that deadline doesn't do us any good. If we just, let's set a new deadline for their recommendations to be due by February 11th.
I'd like to inject one remark.
Sure.
We're setting a deadline for another organization to have a report for us, correct?
Sure.
Why don't we just wait a week and go to the organization and say, we need 2 months to be ready? What's a good deadline for you? You could be imposing, they could be ready at the end of this month, or they could be ready the first week of December.
I'm fine with it then.
So we ought to let them say, when will you be ready? We need 2 months to be ready, and then pick your deadline.
Well, that's what this resolution is. One they're proposing is more or less doing that.
Well, I think they might be a little bit confused, but if we back it, throw the ball back to them and say, look, we need 2 months to be ready, is that correct? Minimum. Right? 2 months to be ready?
Well, then we would need to back it up to February 1st.
Right,
This
but
doesn't
says
stop
they will
them
be
from
ready
getting
January
it.
31st.
Well, the deadline's just the deadline, they can be ready, they can be recommendations before that, I
But
think.
why not let them pick their deadline
I mean, I have no problem with tabling this.
and just giving them options instead of cramming it down their throat or making it, they could be ready sooner.
Well,
But I think your
it has to be
language-
completed, like, we can't just extend this out as long as we want.
No, that's why we back it up 2
I think
months.
that February 11th date would be a drop dead date. They need to be done by that
Yeah.
time.
We need to have a deadline. I think February 11th is the deadline for them to complete their work and their recommendations.
So you could just word it no later than February 11th to give them flexibility. If they want to do the work earlier, that's fine. Does that work for you?
Yeah, well, I just want them to have the option, you know,
Right.
you don't want to give them a deadline and say, that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, who, part of the group here,
No.
Well, Chief, as the panel discussed when they are thinking about having their recommendations ready to go.
So again, I don't want to speak for them, but I would imagine that the deadline that you suggested would be adequate.
It gives you guys almost 4 full months.
I
More work.
I think that
More
would be
time.
adequate. I could be wrong, but I think that just more time is needed. I believe they feel like they are very, very close to getting some good data and coming up with some very good suggestions, but
Okay.
the December 31st deadline was looming, and they wanted to take proactive action to make sure that they could facilitate these recommendations.
Chief, let me ask you this, and you may not be able to answer it, but from the discussions on the panel, is there anything that they could use or need from the common council?
That's a great question. I'll bring that back. I will definitely ask, because I think that, again, I don't want to speak for them. I think being an isolated group and knowing that they're providing a recommendation for you, I think a little bit of, it was great when you were on the panel because there was that direct dialogue, and it facilitated a little bit better flow. I'll present that and see how they would like to communicate. I think the lack of ability to communicate is a little bit hindering. So maybe just some communication, some direct communication with all of you or some of you, I think would go a long way.
I can come to the next meeting.
That would be.
I'll check my schedule, but if I can, I'll be there.
That would be great.
Okay, so have we agreed on language and a
I
deadline?
have some suggested language, just to, I think I'm trying to capture this as we're speaking, but is this satisfactory? Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore, the common council approves extending the deadline of December 31st, 2020, set forth in the common council resolution of June 25th, 2020, to transmit recommendations of that panel to the common council on or before February 11th, 2020.
I like it. 2021.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So-
Because I'm not reliving this year, just in case anyone's wondering.
So submissions
Nobody.
of the recommendations.
Yes.
Okay, that sounds
So
good.
Councilor Gibbs first. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay.
Councilor
Wait a
McFarland,
second, I didn't
second.
see it. Who was it?
Me?
Yes.
Any further discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Barbell?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor Brody?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Resolved that the bills ordered by the common council for the week ending November 6, 2020, in the amount of $3,916,261.86 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and the city clerk are hereby authorized and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Councilor Moore, second by Councilor Gibbs. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. At this point, is there any members of the public who would like to please come and address the council on items on the agenda tonight? The items 7A through D. Seeing none, please proceed.
Adoption of local law P-5 of 2020, a local law amending and replacing in its entirety Chapter 116 alarm systems as set forth in the city code of the city of Plattsburgh. This local law shall take effect immediately upon approval by the mayor and filing with New York Secretary of State, the entire text of which has been distributed to and read by the members of the common council is hereby enacted without the reading thereof, and a copy of said local law is made part of the minutes of this meeting.
Moved by Councilor
I'll move it.
second by Councilor McFarland.
I'll second.
Discussion.
Yeah.
Yes, well, the first item I'd like to discuss was, what this gentleman, sorry, I didn't catch his name, brought up. Yeah, so the text of this has been submitted to the Department of State that's need to be submitted to the Department of State?
So my read of the Department of State regs is under Article 6D of the General Business Law, which does authorize the COS to regulate the business of alarm systems in general. There's also a regulation in NYCRR which does require the approval of installer courses. That was my read of it. This law is amending and replacing an existing alarm system, local law in the city, which has been in place for many years, but it was pretty outdated. So my read of it was that it was not required, but certainly if there's other information, I'm happy to take that on and analyze it.
Well, I think that for thoroughness and accuracy, I think that that needs to be done, because this is going to require more work of our code enforcement office. It's going to require, there's going to be a fee schedule involved and so forth. There'll be a lot of moving parts here, so I think that would be a more prudent course.
I mean, it's the first time this came up, so it's fine.
Yeah, so with that in mind, I'll make a motion to table this.
I'll second that.
Moved by Councilor McFarland, second by Councilor Gibbs. All in favor of tabling?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the common council accepts and authorizes the property owner to enter into a contract with the lowest priced qualified selected bid for downtown grant program 33 Bridge Street apartment renovations for renovation work related to the 33 Bridge Street project pursuant to the downtown grant program administrative plan.
Well,
Moved by Councilor McFarland, second by Councilor Moore. Discussion.
Yeah, can I speak? I would like to request the council table this item. Bids were received yesterday. The unique nature of the bids, some which allowed contractors to put in a bid for just labor, and others which included labor and materials, need to be reviewed more by the property owner. So I would ask to table this, and they'll have that lowest qualified bidder for next week.
Okay.
For just 33 Bridge Street.
and you're not gonna ask for the same thing for another station?
No.
Okay. I'll make a motion to table it.
Second by Councilor McFarland. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
No, wait, read.
Haven't read it yet.
What?
I said I hadn't read it yet.
I know, we're reading of it.
Okay.
Item number 7C and move to resolution.
Moved by Councilor McFarland, second by Councilor Gibbs. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Discussion of the item itself.
Yeah, do you have any insights into this one?
So for 15 Clinton Street, you guys did approve a permit and some work to be conducted. This procedure of going in front of the council, it's not required. It's not a state demand. It's something that the city had issued into our our contract with the state. It's something that the state will check, but it's something that just to double in on our check on our end. But for 15 Clinton Street, they sent out 4 bids for quotes for electrical work on the interior, roofing work, water main service, which is why you guys last week allowed them to block Clinton Street for the day. I think they conducted the work last night and a little bit today. And a sprinkler system. So they received multiple bids for each of those items, and this is just, once again, to check that box off. So their lowest qualified bidders for all of them were for the electrical was Snow Electric Company, for roofing was Unique Builders, for the water main service was TNT Leasing of Plattsburgh, Inc., and for the sprinkler system, it was All Safe Sprinkler Company, LLC. So they will be engaging into contracts with these individuals and moving forward that DGP project, so.
Any further discussion? Roll call?
Council Barbell?
Yes.
Council Kelly?
Yeah.
Council Gibbs?
Yes.
Council Brody?
Yes.
Council McFarland?
Yes.
Council Moore?
Yes.
Resolution authorizing settlement of property assessment cases filed by Georgia Pacific Consumer Operations LLC.
I'd like to waive reading of this resolution on this item.
I would discourage waiving the reading of this. It's a pretty important legal settlement.
I'd like to withdraw my.
Whereas Georgia Pacific Consumer Operations LLC petitioner filed Article 7 real property assessment review cases against the city challenging the 2016 through 2020 assessments on real property located at Margaret Street, Weed Street, and Cumberland Avenue, City of Plattsburgh, New York, and identified as the 5 following tax map parcel numbers 207.8-1-17, 207.8-1-16, 207.11-1-27, 207.12-3-3, 207.11-1-24, and whereas it is the best interest of the city to avoid the significant cost that would result if the litigation continues to trial, and whereas the following settlement terms, which the council believes to be fair, equitable, and advantageous to the city, have been negotiated with petitioners, and now therefore be it resolved that the common council hereby approves the proposed settlement of the tax assessment cases filed by petitioner for the 2016 through 2020 assessment rolls as follows. The 2016 and 2017 proceedings will be dismissed in their entirety without reduction of the assessment or refunds. The 2018, 2019, and 2020 assessments on tax map parcels numbers 207.8-1-16 and 207.8-1-17 shall be reduced to a combined assessment of $11 million with refunds to be paid accordingly. The combined assessed value on tax map parcels 207.8-1-16 and 207.8-1-17 will be set at $11 million for the 2021, 2022, and 2023 assessment rolls, with the exception set forth at RPTL Section 727-2 to apply. The assessments on tax map parcels 207.11-1-24, 207.12-3-3, and 207.11-1-27 shall not be reduced and shall remain at their current assessments through the 2023 assessment roll, with the exception set forth at RPTL Section 727-2 to apply. Be it further resolved that unless otherwise ordered by the court, refunds based upon the assessment reduction shall be paid without interest, provided they are paid within 90 days after petitioner serves a copy of the filed stipulation and order of settlement on the city and other municipal taxing authorities. And be it further resolved that the common council further authorizes and directs the mayor, city assessor, corporation council, and or its special counsel to execute settlement documents and take any additional steps necessary to effectuate the settlement in accordance with the terms of this resolution.
Phew.
Discussion. Councilor Moore.
First and second.
Oh, I'm sorry. First by Councilor Moore, second by Councilor Gibbs. Discussion. And as you know, these have been pretty complicated, ongoing discussions, recognizing that the scale of operations of Georgia Pacific has fallen quite a bit, quite significantly over the last number of years. And I'd like to make sure that we understand we're differentiating very much from some of the past settlements that the city's undertaken that have lowered properties from close to $10 million of value to $250,000 of value. This is a relatively minor reduction in the value of this property, and I appreciate the ability to negotiate this with Georgia Pacific. They were good partners in the negotiation. Any further discussion or questions? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilor Barbell?
Yes.
Councilor Kelly?
Yes.
Gibbs?
Yes.
Councilor Brody?
Yes.
Councilor McFarland?
Yes.
Councilor Moore?
Yes.
Well, and I should mention one other thing, not too late. We did work with the school district and the county on this. That affects all three jurisdictions. I haven't heard how the school district feels about the settlement. They haven't responded late, but the county's been an excellent partner in this and applauds the work that we've all done together. Thank you. That's it. No travel requests at this time. Are there any resolutions for initial consideration? Any new business or additional councilor reports?
I have some things I'd like to bring up. I have emailed councilors with my large concerns regarding this updated budget from October, and I'd like to have or make a public statement about it. I see a number of problems with this budget. At the beginning, I'm going to start with the civil service implications. Civil Service has not been contacted about how all these changes, collapsing of departments and so forth are going to work. To collapse the planner into the building inspector would require a charter change. All job specifications would need to be reviewed by Civil Service. The project coordinator in this October budget is left alone in the CD office. No director is a charter violation. The one-stop shop between the city chamberlain's office and the city clerk's requires a charter change. Job descriptions of every clerk involved would need review. All rec complex employees now have no one to report to. Possibly that could be Public Works, but that is also a charter change. The paperwork involved is a list of all affected departments, a list of all affected employees, reclassification forms, and charter changes. The financial objections I have are, there's no updated 5-year plan as per the charter for successful planning on this budget. The interfund transfer amounts have changed with no explanation. I asked for access to the Chamberlain to have a discussion with him. I couldn't get access to him. There's massive cuts in payroll with no plan. If people don't retire, it forces either using fund balance or massive job cuts. If there are fund balance depletions, the only way out is to raise taxes. Massive tax cuts changes the tax rate. So if we do a 14% tax reduction, it's going to change our tax rate. And it will make it nearly impossible to gain revenue, creating a financial deficit. Financial deficits will not be able to be restored immediately because the tax cap will change, and it will take years to dig out of that financial hole. There's no legal reason or basis to rush to the finish by November 19th. I object to that deadline. I do not want us to be told that our budget needs to be done by then, because there's no way I can get behind this budget. I've asked for access to Richard. Mayor, I would like to have, and I think every counselor needs to have, unfettered access to the Chamberlain to get questions answered about this budget. And I would like that to be granted to us. And I don't think this council can move forward with a vote on it by November 19th. And I don't know how the rest of the council feels about this. You know that I've expressed all these concerns by email. So Mayor, can we have direct access to the Chamberlain so we can go over items with him that we are concerned about?
Certainly, we tried to schedule a meeting on Thursday at 9 a.m. with you to do that. I did ask for the
But I teach, you know that, I work full-time. I'm not available at 9 o'clock. I think that we should have access to the Chamberlain when it's convenient for our schedules, and I would like that granted.
Is that a resolution?
I don't see why I have to ask for a resolution to have access to the Chamberlain when we're looking at a 14% cut in the budget with all of these objections that I've just raised, which are factual. These aren't opinions, because I've researched them and I've looked into them. There is no reason for me to pass a resolution of access to the Chamberlain so I can get my questions answered.
I don't disagree with you.
And I think the rest of the council needs to also speak up about this. So will you grant me access, or any counselor have access to the Chamberlain so we can have our questions answered?
I did. We tried to conduct a meeting for you. Actually, you didn't respond to
I did.
offer an alternative time.
There was no ask for an alternative time, so that's what I'm asking now. Can I have access to the Chamberlain at a time when it's convenient for my schedule?
Certainly, we'll put that meeting together.
No, I will put the meetings together. I want it convenient for my schedule. Are you granting access for us so that I can talk to Richard at a time that's convenient?
No, we'll put that together as the charter requires.
This is ridiculous. It's a pretty easy ask. We're talking about massive, massive changes here. And we cannot do any of this and be ready by the November 19th deadline.
We're willing to put in as much time as you need to work on this together.
Mayor, may I address some of Elizabeth's concerns, please?
Certainly.
Okay, Elizabeth, in your email, you said there is no updated 5-year plan for this new budget, so there's a massive reduction in taxes with no successor planning to go with it. I'm not sure what that means, but an updated 5-year plan is part of the charter, and that was not done. So I'm going to say to you that the 5-year plan has been updated and the budget committee's reviewed it. If you'd like to see it, we'll share it with you. It would make more sense to revise the plan after the budget passes, but if you want a sneak preview, we can do that. I can tell you right now that permanently lowering operating costs have no negative impacts on future budgets. The council does a 5-year plan
and it is not part of the mayor's budget. You are right, however, to be concerned about the 5-year plan and updating it after the budget passes, just as we do every year. Number 2, interfund transfers are a problem, you stated. And I would like to reply that interfund transfers that make sense are never a problem. Asking ratepayers to pay retirement costs for employees is not a problem. Asking taxpayers to pay ratepayers' expenses is a problem. To me, a bigger problem the council just approved is a $270,000 transfer to fund a general fund public works project. I think that this will get us in bigger trouble than moving some retirement costs to where they belong. Number 3, massive cuts in the payroll lines are going to create a budget crisis for the next mayor and council. This is what you said. And then later on in this item, number 3, using a different text, so I got to believe you pasted this information in from someone else. You said forces action in one of a few directions: draw down the payroll line and force massive job cuts, or draw from the fund balance to fund the payroll. If this happens, there will be a need for a tax increase in 2022. But actually, Elizabeth, the fiscally responsible mayor and council will have no problem balancing future budgets based on next year's budget. In fact, the one thing that the mayor's budget does is wipe out our nagging structural deficit that has lasted ever since I've been a councilor. So now we actually have an opportunity to remove that structural deficit. Mayors who can't handle budgets turn to tax increases as a way out. Never a good idea, as we have seen from our past practice. The budget returns tax rates back to 2006 levels and makes Plattsburgh one of the more attractive places for development. A forward-thinking mayor would welcome this as an opportunity for making great things happen. Next, you said a massive 14% tax cut changes the tax rate and will make it nearly impossible to gain necessary revenue through taxes to fund operations, therefore creating a financial deficit. Financial deficits will not be able, and again, this is in a different font, so I'm not sure where you pasted this in from. Financial deficits will not be able to be restored immediately because the tax cap will change it and it will take years to restore the money. Well, my answer to that is, if anything, we should be looking at ways to bring tax rates even lower. If Watertown can do it for $8.22 per thousand, so should we. That's the whole message in the state tax cap and the constitutional tax limit of $20 per thousand. Jump on the high tax bandwagon and discover just how soon you bump up against the constitutional tax limit. It's time for innovation in city government and not just attempting in vain to maintain the status quo. The next item you stated was that the council needs more time to work on the current budget.
Yes, we do.
And you felt that was an arbitrary date.
It is.
But I will say to you that passing budget resolutions and an annual budget is really pretty simple. If there's something you want changed in the budget, prepare a resolution, find some way to offset increased costs, if increased costs are expected, and conduct a vote. That's it.
No, it's not that, and so.
Regarding infrastructure, Councilor Moore has indicated a willingness to entertain any and all budget resolutions regarding infrastructure on or before the 12th.
Okay, well, that's nice, except I'm not ready.
The whole process is being rushed with an arbitrary deadline that has no legal basis for its decision. The deadline's not arbitrary. It is a good goal to pass a budget before Thanksgiving, and our department heads can use some extra time to prepare for the next year if we do it sooner. The town usually passes their budget long before us, usually without a hitch. Why do we insist on all the drama every year? Could there be someone besides the people setting the agenda? And finally, you say the deadline for the budget process needs to be changed to reflect adequate time to make the necessary changes in the budget to reflect a budget that is legal, viable, sustainable, and carefully crafted. And while this is a dramatic statement, it simply is not true. Having a balanced budget with low taxes hurts no one except maybe some self-interested individuals. We have to act for all the people, not just some. The budget schedule will continue as planned, unless you can come up with some life or death reasons why it shouldn't.
Yes, I can think of a number of reasons. So I want, I have a number of questions that need answering. I want access to the Chamberlain for that. To write budget resolutions, I have a lot of work to do because public safety, of course, takes the largest hit. I can't get that done and have them submitted and ready to go by the 19th.
As the head of the budget committee, I would say yes. Let's have that meeting with the Chamberlain anytime you're ready. Now, keep in mind,
I don't need an escort to have a meeting with the Chamberlain. If I want to meet with the Chamberlain, I should have access to him, and I don't need somebody to come with me.
I'm retired. I have all day, every day, and as you know, it would be similar to me asking for unfettered access to Chief Ritter.
Right.
You're in charge of the Public Safety Committee. And I would never dream of going directly to Chief Ritter without informing you first. So I just ask you for the common courtesy to include the budget committee, finance committee in your discussions with the Chamberlain. That's all. We just want to be in the loop.
So, I mean, we can debate the budget. I have a feeling when we get to voting on the budget and voting on budget amendments, there's going to be disagreement in the council. But that's not really what Elizabeth's asking for. She's asking for two things, right? More time.
Yes.
And unfettered access to Mr. Marks.
Yes.
And I think those are both pretty reasonable requests. I'm going to suggest a few budget resolutions. I don't have them ready to go today. I might have them ready by November 19th, but I see no reason to rush this process. We have until January 14th, so we have until the end of the year. I see no problem with Elizabeth's request, especially since she is the chairwoman of public safety. If she thinks she needs more time to talk to her managers and get some budget resolutions in, then I think that's appropriate. And if she needs to talk to Chamberlain Marks about that, certainly the budget is a very important thing, which I know you agree with, Mike. So I don't have a problem with that for a request. And I think both her requests should be granted.
I think Elizabeth's already been talking with the Chamberlain, but you know I can't verify that.
No.
That's not a true statement.
That's not true. I know, and it doesn't matter, but it's not true. There seems to be some, false accusations here. I have two requests. I don't think that we should be held to this November 19th deadline because I don't have, that's not enough time for me to complete the work that needs to be done. I would like access to the Chamberlain because I have a number of questions, not just connected to public safety, but other areas of the budget, and I want to be able to access them. So,
Let's set up a meeting for next week.
I will set up a meeting that's convenient for me. So, does the mayor want me to send that request through Beth, Mayor Reed?
Which request?
To have a meeting with the Chamberlain. Would you like me to send that request through Beth?
You can suggest some times and we'll proceed according to the charter.
Oh, thank you.
Well, okay. If you want to put forth a resolution, you can do that too. Because I think those are pretty reasonable requests. Like I said, I have quite a few problems with the budget, and I'm going to put forth some budget resolutions. Obviously, Sylvia brought up a couple that, or at least one that absolutely needs to be done. I am worried about the rec complex. I know we're waiting on an agreement with the YMCA to be worked out. But I will also probably, and I know, I think Director Miller put in some ones here. Although I haven't had a chance to go through all of them. But I do know that we have some rec department staff that are over a decade of experience that I believe are currently riding the garbage trucks, which is fine, but it's a misallocation of resources, I think, and I certainly want to make sure that the beach is ready to go for next year, supposing that we don't have COVID ready. And I think discussion on this stuff should be as thorough as possible. Certainly, our lobby has been filled, and no one has missed this, with members of public safety on a pretty much weekly basis since the new budget came out on October 8th. And I think to deny that
Like 3 blind mice.
There has been no public support for this October budget, nothing. I've received absolutely no support. There hasn't been any member of the public who has come in support. We are here to serve the public. The public does not support this budget. And for us to not listen to that, we are not doing our jobs. And how anybody in this room can move forward with that is beyond my understanding. It is clear that the public does not support this. End of story.
Here, here.
Any further new business or council reports?
Yeah, I have one. Last week I know I talked about the resolution that was passed on September 10th to put forth or to actually close the in-person visits to, payment of utility bills at the finance department. And certainly I brought up a lot of concerns last week. I still have those concerns, but I actually got a call from a constituent today who brought up another concern. And it was one I hadn't foreseen, and I was wondering if Richard could help me with this. But basically, her concern was that she pays her bill, and she pays it, her bank sends a check. But when her bank sends a check to the finance department, they do not have the coupon that's sent out with the bill. She doesn't wait for her bill, and she spends a lot of time actually out of town. I think she goes to Florida or something during the winter months. And she's concerned that the letter she got expressed that you need to attach the coupon if you're sending a check to Hicksville, but if she's in Florida or something and doesn't have access to her physical mail, that she won't be able to do that. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, we have that problem right now. Everybody that participates in what they call online bill pay, it's not a direct payment. Their banks actually cut checks and either mail them to 41 City Hall Place or to the address of Hicksville, depending on where the person paying the bill directs them to mail it. And we don't get payment coupons with either one of those types of payments, no matter where they go. So we have to either research the payment here to find out how to apply it, or in Hicksville, they take it and say it's a payment that came in without a coupon match, so they put it in a separate file for us to have to go in and annotate and update so that we can apply the payment to the proper bill number.
And
So we face that problem right now. It's not going to change.
So it's not going to change, but it doesn't provide an extra layer of discomfort for her. If they send it in without a coupon, it'll still have to be dealt with, but I think what she was afraid is that her payment wouldn't go through.
Could she just do it auto withdrawal, the new system we set up that doesn't
I
require
asked
any
her that, and
information?
she was uncomfortable doing that.
A lot of people are.
Well, I guess so.
Yeah, I mean, we've had that out there for a long time, and we have about 700 people who have signed up for it now out of 13,480 accounts. So it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen overnight that people don't want to get a paper bill in the mail. We only have 1,200 people who have signed up for that. It takes time for people to accept these changes, and sometimes it's generational. But the people who send in payments through online banking, their payments aren't going to be confused, or they're not going to be, misapplied. We're doing that right now, those payments that come here as well as payments that go to Hicksville. Now, the bigger problem is what do we start doing with the payments that are mailed here when we don't want people sending them here? Do we forward them at extra expense? Do we get a courier to do it the same day? If we put it in the mail, it could be delayed by weeks sometimes. Everybody knows the mail isn't reliable right now.
And why would you need to do that?
To send it to Hicksville to have it applied there.
See, but that's where why would you need to send it to Hicksville? If it came there, Hicksville would send it and then they would send it back to you to be processed, or they're doing the processing?
No, if it's mailed here to City Hall, I mean, we're telling everybody we want to be like New York State Electric and Gas. We want to close down local payment windows for utilities, and we want you to send everything to our lockbox, just like NICEAG does. That's what was discussed back in July and August.
Didn't we just say last week that we weren't closing the window? I thought the mayor said that.
I said, I've never asserted closing the window, correct?
So, is this a moot point? Is the window open and taking payments, or is the window closed and not taking payments?
There's a lot of people that want to still drop their payments in the Dropbox.
Well, we just heard from the city.
We get 3,500 payments.
Dropbox was essential.
We get 3,500 payments a month that are dropped in our Dropbox. And we're saying to people, no, you can't drop your utility payments in there. But I'm gonna have a real problem with closing that during property taxes. So, I mean, it's a problematic thing for us that we're gonna have to solve, but, you know, the resolution was put through, and, you know, we're gonna do what we can to make it work.
Well, ultimately-
We'll probably close the Dropbox slot between January 1st and February 15th, reopen it at that point in time for property taxes, close it after July through the next, you know, February 15th. And we're gonna recommend to people, start sending your payments all to Hicksville. But if they send them here, I can't see us refusing them and not applying them. We're still gonna have to deal with them. 3,500 people a month mail their payments to 41 City Hall Place, even though we send them a return envelope for Hicksville.
Councilor Brody, I think that wherever there's a resolution, it still requires a mayor to put it in place. I'm going to put it in place with reason that allows for a window to be open and to take into account your concerns.
So the window is open.
It is.
And people can make their utility bill in it there.
And can people still use the Dropbox?
First of all, I think that the resolution may have applied only to the future, but if I were mayor, I would of course allow people to also use the Dropbox. We need to be reasonable, look for efficiencies, not look to create
Which is
inconvenience.
something that I noticed that might be helpful. Now, I understand the whole purpose behind this was to save payroll of one person or half a person per year,
Well,
about 18,000 in savings.
I think that was the contention, but once again, I said that I can't afford to have a person laid off January
Yeah.
1st because I'm not gonna be able to keep up with the work. We proved that May the 1st, when I had 2 people furloughed against what I said would happen. I said, hey, we can't afford to do that, we're gonna fall behind, and we did. We had 1 furlough from data processing, we were about a month behind in applying, or excuse me, in preparing and sending out our invoices for utilities. And applying payments for the other clerk that was furloughed, fell behind 3.5 weeks to that point in time when we got that person back July 31st. Now, those 2 people were supposed to be laid off at the end of July, is what I recall. And because if we didn't do that, we weren't gonna make payroll by the end of the year.
Yeah.
Had those 2 people been laid off, we would be critically behind on everything that we do right now. We need those 2 clerical positions. So one has been unbudgeted for January 1st that I've said in the.
Needed in your budget.
In the budget that I gotta put that person back in.
What I was gonna ask you, Richard, was I see at AT&T and stuff, and this might help you with your time management a little bit, is I've seen now the people that pay with checks that go to Charter Communications or they go to the other places, like a kiosk set up, and they make their payment directly from the kiosk and they insert it. That would save you time.
Yep. I think that could work. We have a kiosk downstairs that we can't get to work right now because the Wi-Fi in the basement doesn't work right. But
That goes
there
back to
is
your
a
IT.
kiosk down there that was supposed to provide parking payments, I believe, parking ticket payments. Ethan, you were the one that put that down there, and what was that for? Was that for parking? Yeah. So we've never gotten it to work because the Wi-Fi doesn't communicate with it well, but certainly kiosks are an option, and we definitely would.
And you could have it right in your office in the back corner, people could walk in and still have that ability to walk in your office. If they have a check, they punch in the information and it's done instantaneously, it spits out the receipt. They still have the satisfaction knowing that they hand delivered it to you, saved the 55 cents on postage, and it's there for you.
Sure. I spent half the day today on the phone with about 4 or 5 customers, all complaining about,
Oh, yeah. Well, I've had about 5
the notice
calls.
that they've gotten on the back of the other notice that we put in the October mailings. A lot of complaints are coming in. I don't know if you've seen complaints, but.
Yeah, I have, but those are the were brought up last time, indigent people in truck. But so, just so when I talk to this constituent, if you don't have the coupon and you send a check to Hicksville, what happens?
Okay. There's a separate file created for payments that come in without coupons in Hicksville. We create an electronic record that doesn't have a bill number. So we have to pull that record when we get it, and we have to fill in the blanks so we can apply those payments. They still accept the check and deposit it in the city's bank account, so we have the cash same day. But we don't have all the information to be able to just upload that file and post it. We have to go in and annotate each record for the bill number that needs to be applied.
So it's a waste of labor on your part then, having to do it twice.
Well, each payment takes about 4 to 4.5 minutes if you look at the time allocation of things. From the time you open the envelope till you get the check scanned going to the bank deposit. All right? With this way, it's probably 2.5 to 3 minutes of time that we have to put towards applying that payment properly. So we're saving some time.
30 seconds.
No,
2 minutes.
no, about 1.5 minutes.
Yeah.
But
Meanwhile-
the point is, we still have to look at every one of those lines individually and make sure it's going to apply the payment to the bill number that's not supplied because they haven't scanned a coupon. What they do with a good payment that has a check that matches and a coupon, they scan the two of those together and that creates a file, and those 1,000 or 2,500 payments a month come in that way to the lockbox, we can just post that in minutes. So yeah, we're doing that right now. It won't be a change for that person. If they keep doing that same way, it's still gonna happen that same way. If they send it to us through their bank here, we'll have to just manually call it up and apply it, based on the name. And sometimes on those checks, we do have an account number or a customer ID, so that helps too. A lot of different ways we accept payments. A lot of options, there's a lot to know. It's very complicated. You have auto pay, you have credit card payments, you have e-check payments, you have mail here, you have mail to Hicksville, and you also have the Dropbox. We deal with all of it.
And you have cash payment. And you have cash at the, right now.
We do have cash too. And I have to take that cash over and drop it to the bank. Unless I'm not here, somebody else does.
And you have people that always want to pay cash, just as the city.
We have people that don't have bank accounts that say to us, what do we do now? And we're saying, well, you're gonna have to go get a money order to pay and mail it to the place over the coupon. The hardest part about sending people a notice that says, you're gonna have to all be paperless. We're sending them a bill so that they can tear off a coupon, and we sweat the details on to make sure it gets folded right on the perforation, so that when they tear it, they don't tear off the code at the bottom of it, because that's an error in a scan. And we send them a return envelope that gets it to Hicksville. Now, if we tell them, oh, you have to all go to e-bill, how are we gonna ensure that, they're sending their payments to Hicksville properly? They're gonna have to print it out, cut the coupon piece off, and then address an envelope to Hicksville to make sure it gets there properly. If we force them to go with e-bill, which is another suggestion I think was being discussed.
Or you could just leave things alone the way it is and it works.
We tell the customers, we have a lot of different ways to do things. The ones I talked to today that were complaining about, the changes, I said, hey, how about the auto pay? What about that? And explained how easy that can be. Some liked it, some didn't. Some feel that they don't have control of it, and they're worried about the security of it. And they're also saying, I just don't feel comfortable letting someone have my bank information. And I get that, I understand that. So we offer them all the options that we can.
Any further discussion?
I want to make just a short comment. I want to support what Richard said, that this is a generational change, and this is not happening. We passed this resolution to do this a couple of months ago, I think, didn't we, Richard? And, we know that it's going to be difficult for a lot of people. But at some point, you got to move into the 21st century. You can't continue to do business like you did in the 1950s. And city government, just like private business, has to look at all kinds of innovative ways to change and increase effectiveness and efficiency. And this is a step that doing things differently, that will create that efficiency. But it's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be quick. I spent time this afternoon on the phone with a gentleman, he was concerned about having to spend 80 cents for a stamp and send it to Hicksville with his check. And I mentioned to him about, having a direct deposit from his checking account to pay his bill. He didn't quite understand what I was talking about, and he reframed it. You mean it'd be like direct pay or something that I do out of my account? And I said, absolutely. And he didn't know you could do that in the city. But he was very upset upset and complaining a lot until he learned that there was another way they could do this. And he's open to doing it. He just wants somebody to hold his hand and show him how to do it and what he has to do to set that up in the city. So, we've got a long way to go to put this in place, but I think I'd caution you to be very careful about backing away from using technology versus people walking into the building and paying the bills the way they did in the 50s.
I think I agree with everything everybody has said, but we can't do anything rigidly. We have to do things with in mind the greatest convenience and efficiency for the customers. But we also have to figure out ways. It's taken us 4 years just to put in auto pay, which just about every other bill I pay is on auto pay somehow. And it's taken us 4 years to figure out how to do it. We have to move with technology, as the councilor stated, but we also have to do it with sensitivity and lack of rigidity and make an effort to make it succeed, not make it fail. So I don't know if we're going to do that on the floor of the common council. It's going to require people working together to make these things happen and give people multiple ways to succeed. So, any other further discussion on any other items?
Well, now I'll just put the last thing in as I have a client recently, and it was an interesting insight for me because he had a check written to him from the county treasurer's office, and it was a pretty big check, and it took him 2 months to cash it because he didn't have an ID, didn't have he didn't have a bank account, and when he went to cash it at the county's bank, they were calling me because they couldn't get a hold of anyone at the county treasurer's office because they wanted to double check that the check was good because of its large amount. And I took that point as illustrative because I would have had no problem cashing that check the next day, and it literally took him over 2 months to cash it. And I'll leave it at that.
I think you mentioned that last week. We have to be sensitive to other individual needs as we do. We have to try to figure out ways to make things work, not figure out myriad ways to ensure things don't work. Any further discussion? Then move to closing public comments on issues of any issue of mutual concern. Please come forward.
Good evening, my name is Joan Jansen. I want to thank Councilor Gibbs for speaking up for a lot of us. And the views that she expressed were right, absolutely on target. Last week you passed a declaration for a taxpayer appreciation, which was totally unnecessary. And if you want to thank taxpayers, the way to do that is by using the funds wisely. The city is notorious for crying about the lack of money to accomplish projects that will enrich and enhance the life of residents. The city has a very active grant writing and grant getting staff to help add the needed dollars to the coffer. There's a long list of projects that have been denied or postponed due to the lack of money. The taxpayers are not clamoring for a tax cut. They are clamoring for police staff, fire protection, potholes being filled, roads being paved, books available from the library, the beach open and functioning, the completion of the Saranac River Trail, and I could go on. Your department heads cannot make ends meet with further budget cuts, and I think they've made that clear. The citizens are not demanding budget cuts. They are clamoring for the city to function now and next year with a budget that is the same as this year's, not less. No one looks at a tax rate and uses that to determine if they will move to a city or not. People look at the amenities, and they look at the spirit of the community that they choose to move when they choose to move into an area. The proposed budget cuts that the city is putting forward will leave us all poor, both in fact and in spirit. Please pass a sensible budget, one that looks like this year's budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other individuals like to please come address the council?
David Yocum. I just got a question. I don't understand. The electric bill thing is, say somebody's bill is due on the 5th, and my client gets paid on the 2nd. if it has to be mailed out, is their electric bill, because they get a shut-off notice and they got a deadline, and they're on disability, they get a check on a certain day, and they have to mail that out, is their electric gonna get shut off? That's one of my concerns for my clients. I need to know, because I'm working with a lot of people right now that are disabled and stuff. And the other thing, that's just something you guys need to think about. 'Cause I didn't even realize that we're used to, if somebody got a shut-off notice and they get paid on the 1st or the 3rd, they could just go down there and pay the bill. But I got some people that are in wheelchairs. I got some people that don't even have a debit card, that don't even know how to use a computer. And yeah, we need to move on to the 21st century, but we need to think about the disabled people and the elderly people that don't know how to do this kind of stuff. And I'm sorry. And no, I hear everything everybody's saying, but I really think that you guys really need to think hard and think about other people too. Thanks.
Any other individuals like to please come address the council? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Councilor Moore, second by Councilor Brody. Roll call?
Counselor Barbell?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor Brody?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yeah.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
And Councilor Barbell, the floor is yours to resume your hearing.
Okay, if I could have Director come up and finish his budget presentation.
He's ready, proceeding.
Yep. I believe I left off at top department outcomes for 2021. Regarding capital improvements, certainly we'd like to see groundbreaking on the Prime project and have construction well underway by the end of next year. We'd also like to see the completion of Saranac River Trail Phase 2, the Betty Little Arts Park, and the new Plattsburgh Farmers Market building, and we'd also like to see the market have a successful first season in their new home. As to planning, we'd like to see the completion of grant-funded updates to the city's comprehensive plan, LRAP, and zoning code. These, of course, are foundational documents, and they'll govern planning and development efforts within the city for a generation. The work of the city's Climate Smart Communities Coalition Sustainability Task Force is currently on pause while it awaits further guidance from New York State. But obtaining active community involvement in the development and implementation of the initiatives being spearheaded by that group, that'll also be an important goal. Melanie, would you mind shutting that? The implementation of a downtown parking management system is proposed that incorporates current technological solutions and is, of course, financially self-sufficient. That'll afford the city the option to relieve property owners within the special assessment district of the financial burden of maintaining the city's parking infrastructure, and it creates a more equitable system in which that burden is shifted to the users of the system itself. For Rec Complex, reductions in available resources and restrictions associated with the pandemic requires a more community-based approach to management of the city's parks and other rec facilities. Now, that may include the establishment of a youth bureau to assist with management of league use of the city's parks, and consultation with Clinton County regarding the potential for a more collaborative approach to the administration of the city's rec assets. And while a reduced rec complex staffing contingent will still be needed to coordinate these efforts, a broader base of support will limit expenses to city taxpayers. It's also worth... Yep.
I missed something there, but my biggest concern, my biggest question for you there to know is, as the budget is proposed right now, what does that mean for the city beach next year?
If the council does not approve appropriating funding to bring back at least a few of the recreation staff that were laid off earlier this year, we will not have the staffing resources necessary to prepare the beach for a normal operating system next year.
Now, normal operating system, that means some lifeguards and then.
Lifeguards.
concessions and we need bathrooms and stuff like that, so.
Yep, and for some additional context, in 2019, the last year we had a normal beach season, the prep work to get everything in place, and that is finding staff, working with civil service to bring them online, facilities, equipment, and everything else that goes into it, was a solidly 3-month process by almost the entire full-time rec staff. Now, right now, the staffing resources we have are just the 4 people in the community development office. And if those preparations are left to us, we do not have the time with our other responsibilities to do the necessary work to get the beach ready for a 2021 season.
So, now I know that the clerk is under contract now, at least for the first few months, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
And I know the gymnasium is, you're negotiating with the YMCA.
Mhm.
And I hope that gets done soon, because I know pickleball is certainly waiting in the wings, and I get is it wings or wings? Whatever. There's people waiting on that. So, but what, to answer, so if the budget goes through as it's written now, the beach just won't open, or it'll be like it was this year?
The city would have the option of conducting it similar to how it was done this year, where the beach was termed a park with beach access. I don't know how Clinton County Health Department would feel about that. Certainly there was some leeway this year because of the pandemic, but I can't say for certain what level of service we would be able to provide at the beach.
And now, do we have any answer to the question of do we need lifeguards, or can we have swim at your own risk? That just brings up big liability problems.
It's a liability question. I did reach out to the health department several months ago on that. I don't recall getting a firm answer, but if the council would like me to, I can certainly conduct some further outreach and try and get a firm answer from them on that.
Now, I mentioned some of the department staff earlier in new business. To get the beach operational, what is the minimum? And we have a management to hire and go out and find lifeguards and stuff like that, but we also need, I imagine, does DPW handle maintenance over there, or is that the rec department?
It was a mix of maintenance work by the rec complex staff and also by the Department of Public Works.
Okay.
Department of Public Works took over management of it this year, of course, because we didn't have any rec staff.
Next year, as the budget stands now, will we have any rec staff?
No.
Will we have a community development staff?
We will have a staff of 1.
Who's going to monitor all this?
I do not know.
Now, how many rec staff need to be brought back to operate the beach?
I have included in my budget proposal packet to the council resolutions that would reinstitute funding for 3 former positions under the rec complex. Now that is a recreation program coordinator, a recreation leader, and a recreation maintenance worker. I have spoken to the ASME union. I have also spoken to civil service. Neither of those organizations object to the rehiring of the former occupants of those positions, 2 of which are currently, as you noted, working at DPW. In total, they have, I believe it's over 30 years of collective experience working for the city and the rec department. If the council, I would prefer that the council consider all 3 of the positions. If it's the council's decision that the city can only afford to bring back a certain number of them, I will take that information and then make a very tough choice from among those 3 positions, but I would prefer that the council name the number of positions rather than me picking and choosing.
And if negotiations with the YMCA or any other people that responded to the RFC fall through under the budget, what happens with the gym next year?
So if the city cannot come to a mutually agreeable arrangement with the YMCA, the city did receive 2 additional proposals. If the council sees fit to authorize further discussions with the next highest scoring proposal of the 3 that we received, that is the course that I would recommend. But of course, that's only if we are not able to reach an agreement with the YMCA.
Can't reach an agreement with any of them.
If we can't reach an agreement with any of them, we have no choice but to shutter the gym.
And now, the building inspector was asked a couple of weeks ago, I think during the public safety budget hearings, about how we function, zoning and planning being merged. Right now, planning is under your aegis of community development. If those, I don't know if maybe planner Taylor would be better equipped to answer this question. If that is to happen, how would that work as your department sees it?
I do not know. I've had no discussions about how that will work. If Milena has anything to add, she certainly can.
Yeah, I can just add that, the mayor had reached out to me and asked me about that. I understand the concept of a one-stop shop for developers to come in and meet with zoning and planning and get ushered through the development process, but right now, I mean, Joe can attest that we do coordinate up front, and you can see by the numbers, we had 2 site plans that were approved this year and 4 subdivisions, so majority of my job is actually grant management and grant administration. So I think we're coordinating the best we can, and really all we need to do at this point for planning and zoning, and I think my role is a better fit in the community development office, because unlike, say, the town of Plattsburgh that has a lot of vacant land and they see a lot of development, the city of Plattsburgh is more geared towards, redevelopment and grant administration. So I think my role is a better fit in the community development office.
What happens to the community development office without a director?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Nor do I.
Where did you assume there was not gonna be a director? I don't think that was stated in the budget.
The budget doesn't include the salaries for the
Yes, it
staff,
does. Yeah,
or
it
the
does.
director.
The budget in the mayor's budget that was released in October includes funding for one position that currently exists within the community development office, and that position is not the director.
So who directs without a director?
Your guess is as good as mine.
Who oversees these projects without a director?
Same answer.
12 projects,
12 grant projects and several ongoing construction projects.
nobody to supervise it. Nobody to oversee it. Nobody to watch the budgets.
Not with the current budget as it's written, no.
Were you in the budget before?
In the budget that was released in September, yes, the payroll line for CDO was fully funded.
And we had how much of a surplus?
I think it was 400,000?
$400,000
The
surplus?
September mayor's budget, what was the total surplus? The June budget, yeah.
June budget.
We had a $400,000 surplus roughly?
No, in that June budget, June 25th budget, there was an $877,000 deficit budgeted for 2021.
And where do we stand now?
For 2021? Well, if I take that budget and just apply 4 changes, it's a $432,000 surplus.
What?
$432,000 surplus.
And we were up $800,000 in the hole?
877, yeah.
That's a
The big
$1.2
change-
million swing?
Yeah, and the big change there was that there was a $1 million contingency item in that June 25th budget. And that's only gonna be, worst case, at 1.5% for ASPE employees, retroactive payments, $338,000. So that's the biggest change, a $600,000 swing there. But also I put in the projected retirement costs next year, and instead of being a 25% increase in those costs as was budgeted originally, it's only a 6.5% increase in those costs. And there was a refinement on the sales tax. It increased it, I don't know, $78,000 to $3.9 million, and that came from the county. And then the other thing is following the actuary's projection of the healthcare for next year, which, from my experience, it's always best to follow what the actuary says is here's what your healthcare is going to be. Follow what the county says is here's what your sales tax is going to be. Definitely take the retirement projected invoice from New York State, because that's what they're expecting to collect next year. And that came in very close this year. And then also that contingency item, when we refine exactly what would have to be paid based on an ASME settlement, it would take us for retroactive pay through the end of this year, as well as the police and fire settlement for 2 years. And I projected those numbers at 1.5% with all benefits and everything, including $38,000. So not to say that there's not gonna be $1 million eventual cost with the police budget going, 2 years at a time, but it's not all gonna hit next year.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out what happened between the first budget and the second budget, and why the department was there in one budget and the department not there in the second budget. And we're at a $400,000 surplus, which might even be a conservative estimate. Why are we getting rid of the department?
Well, I just want to be clear about one thing. When you say there's a surplus, there's snapshots in time. We're estimating, we do not know the exact revenues for 2021. Richard does a great job of coming up with the numbers, but we don't have actual numbers for next year. We have proposed numbers, estimated numbers.
Yes,
It's
but
it's a budget.
that's one thing that Elizabeth's worried about. I mean, our first budget was off
There's gonna be a surplus.
of $3.5 million, and we ended up with a $400,000 surplus.
We don't even know what it's cost us for this year until somewhat into next year. Then we'll know exactly what everything was for this year.
But we
We're
were
estimating
estimating $3.5 million
estimate.
shortfall projected, and then you wind up at the end of the year with a $400,000 plus surplus.
Well,
That makes you scared about the people making the budgets.
well, we hope.
But what's the surplus this year? Because we're talking about next year that you projected.
Well, let's finish this year. We're 2020
So
ends.
you're talking about 2021, right?
Right.
Now, keep in mind what I'm saying. June 25th, there was a budget proposed that was an $877,000 deficit. That included $1,531,000 of property taxes. All I've done, like I normally do every year, is I take that mayor's budget in that level and I roll it forward to the council level. And I just applied 4 changes based on information we know now.
Hard facts,
Yes.
not estimates.
No, well, the projection for sales tax from the county, the projection from New York State for the retirement, and the projection from our actuaries for healthcare. Those things we rely on because that's what we budget based on. And then the big change, like I said, was factoring down the AFSCME and the police retroactive payments that were budgeted at $1 million next year for 2021, down to $338,000 based on what was actually going to be paid for the period through the end of 2020 for AFSCME and for 2 years for the police. So that made the big change between an $877,000 deficit and a $432,000 surplus. Now, we do budget surpluses. We budgeted surplus for 2020 at $688,000. And it's looking like it's gonna come in at about $600,000 surplus, similar to what we budgeted. But once we figure out what the sales tax is gonna be for the last quarter of 2020. Right now, I have 2020's projection at break even.
So it goes back to
And
my
I'm
original
still
question.
I still have in that projection a 31% loss in the sales tax, which I don't believe is gonna happen because we're at a 31% loss in sales tax without considering the last quarter of the year, like we would get 0 for 3 months of the year. For November, for October, November, December. That's not gonna happen. We're gonna get some sales tax, and whatever we get is gonna be the gravy that's gonna be saying, yeah, we'll be at $600,000 surplus for this year. So we do budget surpluses based on what we know, based on the property taxes at the level we forecast. And of course, if we say that we're gonna take $1,600,000 out of the property tax for this year, that's a big bite. That's a huge bite to make up for. And when those tax bills go out in February at a $9.96 rate, there's no changing that.
And that's because of the property tax reduction that's proposed.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
And if none of that happened, would this department exist? I mean, why, if we didn't cut the property taxes as drastic as proposed, would this department exist?
I don't know.
I mean, why is this department being gutted? What happened?
I don't know.
I see nothing but success
You're asking
stories.
Richard, he's not one.
I have no idea what is behind the numbers with only one position being budgeted in community development. I don't know. But I know that one thing has nothing to do with being able to reduce property taxes by $1,600,000. That's a huge, huge bite. And just keep in mind that that's the same level of fight that put the city into a structural deficit back in 2009, when we lost $750,000 from Falcon Seaboard, like that. And the state came in and audited us for inflating the chargebacks to water and sewer by $833,000. They said, that's not gonna do. You've got to undo that. So we did undo that. And by undoing that, we lost $1.6 million in revenue. And we only made up for that by the year 2017. We started increasing taxes in 2017, 18, and 19 by $1,300,000. And then we were able to start projecting that we're budgeting surpluses. Now to turn around and say I'm going to give $1.6 million back in property taxes, I don't see being able to do that unless you're going to cut 20 to 25 jobs out of the general fund.
Yep, that's a water
That's
time
just
that.
my experience with the numbers.
Mhm.
You know, I know I'm not the, you know, the guru here, but I don't see it working.
So that's why we've got community development, the growth area of the city.
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Well, I have said from the beginning, I'm a very pro fan of community development office. And if the city really wants to grow, it needs it. And to see it eliminated is ridiculous. Especially when you got 12 projects in the works that need to be supervised. And when you turn around and you want future growth. If anything, I honestly feel that the community development office should be expanded. Let's take some of that extra $600,000 we have in surplus and give them an extra reach out program to reach out to other businesses. But why are we eliminating it? Elizabeth?
I'm not the one that made the decision. I did not,
think he's gone.
I've been making it very clear. I don't
Where?
support
Why
anything in
is
this
that not in our
budget.
budget?
I didn't deliver eliminated, but this isn't a budget.
I'm here, Steve, I'm
Oh, there.
listening.
I can't see it. There's a blue screen.
Am?
Yep, okay.
I didn't know you cared.
Oh, there you are.
There I am. You happy now?
Yes, sir.
They're probably happier if I'm not on the camera. So, you know, all these things you're talking about just require budget resolutions to change the mayor's budget. Make the budget resolutions, let's vote on them on the 12th and pass the new budget on the 19th. That's all we gotta do. It ain't no big deal.
It is a big deal. Next week is.
It isn't a
12th.
big deal, Elizabeth. I know you want a lot of drama here, but we really don't need that. That's all we've had.
I think
is
he's trying to tell me to calm
drama,
down.
drama. We need a little reality here and a little bit of common sense. And let's just pass the budget. That's all we got to do. The budget is a guideline. You can change it anytime you want. You can change it whatever the date is. I guess the 24th. We come to a council meeting again. You can come in with a slew of budget resolutions in if you want to.
And I do know that Director Miller's actually proposed some other resolutions in his thing, so we can look over those. Now, I know I interrupted you. Is there anything else that you want to express?
I won't read everything. I'll just briefly summarize. With the 12 grants that we currently have on the books,
Barbell's trying to comment. 1 second.
Ira, your volume's very low.
And at that point, I think, these are the conversations that we're going to need to have as a council. If there are, priorities and a half a dozen budget. You heard, just the city clerk today say, here's a change she thinks needs to be made. Matt just was starting to talk about a series of budget resolutions that he was going to recommend. I'm sure Elizabeth is going to have resolutions to change things. We need to then take a look at all the changes that people want in this budget and set some priorities as to what we're going to do with our budget. And, but I really, this is the time to let Matt, make his case for his budget. And then we can argue over why something is here, why it's not here. I don't think this is the time for that. So Matt, would you go ahead and kind of complete the budget presentation?
Sure. So with the Ira, would you mute your? There's a lot of feedback.
Join the club. It sounds like every other word is gone out of these conversations. So it's luckily you gave me the presentation you have. So the rest of the stuff that's going on is real hard to understand.
Okay.
You just might want to try muting though on your side, might help when you're not talking.
Okay, continuing, with the 12 grants that we currently have on our plate, you always have to consider your ability to effectively administer the number of grants that you have. And by any standard, 12 grants is a very heavy load for a 4-person office. So I think next year we should focus on managing the grants that currently exist on the city's books. It certainly doesn't mean that we are going to close our eyes to any potential opportunities. And one primary one that I see, and this is based on discussions that I've had with grant professionals, that they are hearing that the state is planning a very aggressive push for shovel-ready projects next year to stimulate the economy. What's that? Yeah, the talk park. The city has a 2016 feasibility study for the Crate Center that gives details for either demolishing or rehabilitating the structure. The state always likes to see recent feasibility studies when it's considering potential grant awards, but on a schedule where applications for the state CFA process are usually due in July, in order to have enough time to put together a proper application, we would need some clear direction from the council as to which way you want to go, demolition or rehabilitation. I would say no later than April of next year. So I would ask that the council put that on their list of priorities for early next year.
What does the council need to do as far as that goes?
I certainly can't make a decision about what is ultimately going to happen with the crate, given the amount of costs that are involved, and we're talking $2 million for demolition, $3 million for rehabilitation. That decision has to come from the council.
I heard the rates on the soccer programs are over $800 a team, so they're gonna be doing really well on the revenue side, whoever's running the crate.
Mm-hmm.
How much is it usually? Is that different than it usually is?
Yeah. I think the increased rates that we had took was what, 11.25 per team?
Yeah, that sounds about right, but I'd have to take a look to know
So
for
rates have
sure.
already been jacked up again over 2020s, and I think every person that's on a team has to pay a $20 membership fee to be in the league.
Mm-hmm.
So there's gonna be a lot of revenue coming in out there on soccer.
All right. So the next section was, of course, the budget resolutions, and they are included in their packets. There's a series of resolutions for the Community Development Office, one for City Recreation Parks, a few for the Parking Fund, and several for Recreation Complex. For things that we'd like to do next year, the city has several $1 million in revolving loan funds. They're currently underutilized. Now, part of that is the necessary prioritization of limited resources in my office, but it's also the result of the fact that we don't know the full history of these funds. We don't know exactly what they can be used for. So we have deployed a few of them this year, but they've mostly been bridge loans for downtown grant program projects. But they're doing no good to the city other than collecting interest sitting where they are. But in order to be comfortable deploying them more fully, we've reached out to a grant professional in Willsboro who has several decades worth of experience dealing with state and federal agencies. And we asked her for a proposal for basically a deep dive into the history of these funds, interviews with former city staffers who might know that history, discussions with state regulatory agencies about what they can be used for and what they can't. Earlier this year, Richard and I met with a consultant that was provided as a courtesy by HCR, who travels the state and advises municipalities on these types of funds. But from that 2 or 3 hour conversation, I think it was clear to both of us that to get a real handle on what these funds can do, we need a much more involved research process, which is the purpose of the proposal that we've provided. And because of its association with the loan funds, there is a CD special revenue account that we could tap into to pay the cost of that with no expense to the general fund. And I think there's like 22, 23 grand in there right now?
I think it's 27.
27?
Yeah.
Okay.
27,000.
So, assuming the council approves of that proposal, we would go through the process of doing all of that research and consultation with our consultant, and then they would produce a report detailing exactly what those funds can be used for, and then the CDO would take it from there. We would create a marketing strategy to inform the public of the available funding, and then likely seek a third-party loan administrator. With the number of loans that we process in any given year, it's feasible for us to do that internally. But if we're talking about the deployment of several $1 million in loan funds, we don't have the necessary expertise or staffing resources to effectively administer that number of loans. So whether it would be a local bank or a credit union in exchange for a certain fee structure, that would be my recommendation for going forward. As far as approving inefficiencies, the proposed budget amendments, as Councilor McFarland noted, they reflect a more community-based approach with reduced staffing resources when compared to past years in Rec Complex. The proposed amendments would include a total of 3 permanent employees, as opposed to the 7 who were on staff prior to the pandemic. Now, we believe this reduced staffing structure can adequately serve the city's needs going forward. However, a 2021 budget that includes no payroll appropriations for full-time Rec Complex staff would be highly detrimental to our ability to effectively manage the city's recreational assets, especially our beach and our parks. Regarding reduction in costs, and I'll echo what Sylvia said during her budget presentation, the CDO, the parking fund, and Rec Complex have for the past several years. We've been operating under budgets that leave few opportunities for further cost reductions without a substantial degradation in services that we provide. So when compared to the 2021 mayor's budget that was released in October, almost all of the proposed amendments include cost increases. However, when you compare those proposed amendments to historical trends, most of the expense figures are comparable to observed year-end costs in prior years. Regarding enhancing the customer experience, the proposed marketing efforts for the city's loan funds certainly will increase public awareness of the available funds and what they can be used for. And the DRI's marketing project has improved the look and feel of the downtown. And that project also has an interactive map that should be completed by spring of 2021 that will, also help improve the experience of downtown. Assuming council approval of our consultant, we could be looking at a reconstitution of the city's loan funds by spring of 2021. And as I said, that map's supposed to be done in the spring. And then followed by that are the actual proposed budget resolutions, and I can either go through these one by one, or if the council has any specific questions on any of the items, I can touch on those now. Whatever you guys prefer.
I have to go.
No, that's fine.
Sorry.
I have one question.
Sure.
Councilor Gibbs brought up civil service.
Yep.
Has anyone from your office talked to the civil service department over at the county regarding a possible merger of planning and zones?
No one that I'm aware of, no.
I called them.
Yeah, I know you called.
Yep. This whole budget is a civil service nightmare. So, I gotta go, and I'm really sorry.
No, that's
It was a
fine.
fantastic presentation.
Thank you.
It was very clear. I think you made it very clear the benefits of everything that's happening in your office. I just want to thank you, but I'm sorry, guys, I have to go.
No, of course.
Thank you.
One question.
Sure.
Why is there $600 for water and sewer in the parking lot? That's the 3565000 parking lot.
Mm-hmm. Why is there 600? Richard may be better able to answer that. I just know that looking at historical trends, that's what it's trended as.
There's bathrooms in the parking lot?
No, imagine when they fix the parking lots, they maybe, I don't know, I'm just guessing. I probably shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Check that account, I think it might be for the farmer's market building.
How much is the farmer's market paying for rent on the new building?
On the new building, that hasn't been determined yet.
The old building is $375 a season. So no, it doesn't cover the utilities. But I gotta check that, see, I think that's the account for the farmer's market, but I'll let you know.
All right.
I'll let you know that.
Just like parking lots,
Every $20 on that.
Mm-hmm.
Seems to me the farmers ought to at least be able to cover the utilities. Or more.
Bring that up.
Well, I don't
That's
think
certainly a
any-
discussion I can have with them,
I
yeah.
don't think any of the facilities we're renting, we're saying the utilities have to be covered by the leaseholders. None of them are. Where the city is covering all of the utilities for the gym, the crate, and the marina.
Yeah, that's correct. Well, that, the crate and the marina, we haven't entered into an agreement yet for the gym, but the other two, yes.
You're proposing to impose on January 1 parking permits and fees and fines?
Mm-hmm. Well, no, not on January 1. Those are prorated figures if you're talking about the parking revenue based on an implementation date of April 1st, 2021.
I'm sorry, what are we even talking about right now?
So there are proposed amendments to the anticipated revenue lines for the parking lot fund. One is parking permits, one is parking fees, and the other is parking violations and fines. In the October mayor's budget, all of those line items were zeroed out. I am requesting a amended estimated revenue figures of $67,500 for parking permits, $45,000 for parking fees, and $30,000 for parking violations and fines. That's for a little more context. The Parking Advisory Committee recommended that parking permits be instituted in 4 downtown lots. Those lots have a total of about 245 spaces. So I figure 250 permits we might be able to sell at $30 a month times 12 months is $90,000. I think April 1st, assuming that the prime project is approved, is a reasonable date for implementation. So prorating that $90,000 3/4 of the year, that's $67,500.
This would be offset by getting rid of the special assessment district.
My recommendation to the council, and I believe this was
You said keep the legal structure, but
keep the legal structure, absolutely, because otherwise we would create a zoning nightmare. But I would recommend that we keep the SAD in place at least for a portion of a year to get an accurate gauge of how much revenue we can really expect the new parking system to generate. If it generates enough to take the place of the SAD entirely, then at that point I could certainly recommend that we eliminate that fee for all downtown property owners.
Who's going to enforce this?
The current mayor's budget eliminates funding for the city's lone parking enforcement officer, so I do not know.
you have a budget amendment that, I think I saw one.
Yes, there is a budget amendment to reinstate funding for the parking enforcement officer.
Have you talked to the downtown businesses who will be not only paying for their parking, but also paying for the special assessment district that presumably covers parking?
Double taxation?
Yes, and that's certainly a concern, but a lot of the feedback that we've received from downtown business owners, and of course everybody has strong opinions on parking, but one consistent piece of feedback was that they have appreciated the empty parking spaces that they found more consistently in front of their storefronts than existed before we resumed active parking enforcement in 2019. And without a parking enforcement officer, everything goes back to the Wild West and people park in front of their stores for weeks at a time.
My store manager actually said to me that the employees of social services have 90% of the street tied up.
Mm-hmm.
Right now?
Yeah. He says you can watch them go in and out, and there's no place to park. Because they don't even want to park in the parking lot.
Are they getting ticketed?
Not
When they get ticketed? Because we have a parking enforcement officer.
right now.
We do currently, yes. But as of January 1st, with the current budget, her position would be defunded.
Well, that's what happened too, like, that's what the parking study showed, is like some people like will stay parked on Clinton Street for like weeks.
And one thing to add about the parking enforcement officer, I know there's been some discussion among the council about that position not paying for itself. I took a look at the records from 2019, which was the first full year that, of course, was not affected by COVID. I think the total amount of parking fines that were issued were $56,000 and change. The parking enforcement officer's position with benefits is somewhere in the mid-60s. So it does not cover the entirety of the cost, but it does cover the base salary.
It did trend down a little bit because people got used to it. Because at the beginning it was going pretty high. It's looking like it was going to make $90,000 a year, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it needs to be
Yeah, and it was never the intention for every individual component of the new parking system to be revenue neutral. It was the intention to have the system as a whole be cost neutral to the city. So between permits and kiosks and the parking enforcement officer and everything, we would be looking for a balance, but not every individual piece. It would be a more holistic approach. Any further questions from the council? Ira?
He's muted.
Yeah.
No, I don't have any additional questions. I thank you, Matt. It was a pretty thoughtful presentation and a lot of information. So I think, Mayor, do we need a motion to adjourn the meeting at this point, or are we just?
Whenever you're ready, just conclude your meeting whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I would move to close the governance subcommittee meeting at this point.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, everyone.